It's schnitzel time. Gotta wake up early, put the chicken on the press, get the bread it up. We gotta try our best. It's schnitzel time. Good day, everybody. I hope you can hear me well through these different headphones. That the experimental jazz in the background isn't too loud.
I don't hear any music.
No?
Don't hear anything.
Perfect. I was too busy rendering videos and hyphenating stories down that I was like, I hope I didn't rush it and miss pair, but I didn't, and here we are today. Let's get spunky. I hope I didn't rush it and miss pair, but I didn't, and here we are today. Let's get spunky on stage. Throw them as the co-host, just for fun. Hang tight, folks, while I retweet the room on my other device, just so we get some good audience members and maybe some participants for today's conference couch. Funky storytelling extravaganza. I really love the extravaganza part. Something about that word. It always excites the mind.
Do you know the story of the boy, the fox? What is the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse?
No.
That would maybe be nice because there's so many nice sort of wisdoms in there. It's a really short story, so you can find it on YouTube everywhere, right? That people are reading it. So maybe for next time it would be a nice subject, right? Because there, I will look on some quotes from there. They're really nice, really deep. So we'll look it up and we'll go behind the seat in a moment.
Oh, yes, please. And if anybody in the audience has bits and bobs of stories, from their life and experience they'd love to share, please come on up. But Goyer, I got my phone upside down, sir. You're doing nothing but thumbs up right now. How you feel about that? Nothing but thumbs up. Let's see here. Let me just send out a couple more invites. I just love story. As our species, I've said it before, but we're better suited as the Pan-Naran or the storytelling chimpanzee um, over the Homo sapien, the wise ape. And it's with this nature of story and identity that we draw from said story that we get to identify with who we are or who we think we are or who we appear to be the others. And it's this very beautiful complex menagerie of masks that ultimately dresses us for the world, which is why it's very important to be able to tell better stories, but on that, to have better use of the language so that we can, speak the words and recreate the world rightly so. I want to invite anyone who wants to contribute onto the stage. If not, we're going to do what we do, read some stories, bloviate a little bit, read some more stories, and affinatum. It's only a 2-hour space, so not too much room for the usual tomfoolery, but what we do have in store for you is something quite delightful. We'll be live on your Mazda Vision here in 2 shakes. As soon as I get everything booted up, I am your host, Comfort Creatures, and this is Comfort Couch. Spunky, did you get the co-host? You did. How you doing?
I hear you. I am doing great. I'm under this account because Dijon was late. So yeah.
Surprise! Surprise! You're amazing. I just landed on your Mazda Vision. You had the red carpet rolled out, all the banners going, the whistles were blowing. What a good time indeed. HB, how'd you get into Spunky's body? Bring back Spunky. Bring back Spunky. No, I'm teasing you through and through. I'm glad y'all got to stay up late and join us as we gather around these fires and tell the stories, Read last week's roundup of Spunky's diaries additions into his crumpled paper friend Willie. I'm loving how close to the timeline of life, not the timeline of your ex feed people, but how Michelle had kind of woven some of the holiday cheer and spirit into this crazy chameleon's journey across the junkyard. What a vibe! What a ride! Hope you people are in store. I just finished editing some really heady cyberpunkian sections within my own work that I think I might read to you today. Or I might start from the beginning. It is the new year. This is our first space of the year for Comfort's Couch. Only our fourth space in total. Today, may we herald something that will draw in the creative minds and storytellers across this vast ecosystem. Got queued up. We are live, people. We are running smoothly. I haven't rugged us yet. Bravo, bravissimo. It's not like I don't do this every Monday, Friday, 6:30 a.m. to about 9 a.m. with the digital renaissance. If you haven't had the opportunity to gather around the bonfire, please feel free to stop on by and enjoy some of the liveliest conversations across the blockchain. Retweet the room. I see all these beautiful green dots in there. I can't even go through everybody to shout them out properly. Let's see here. Designer. Oh, what's going on, bud? I see one of my beasts are in here as well. Yes, sir. What you got?
I'm also adding the whole story of last week into the Discord. So if people want to see the story while you tell it, maybe they want to read with you while you are telling the story, they can do that in the Discord as well. I'm now going to add them, and they will be there soon.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. No, I love the whole practice of it. Reading, the listening, the reading and the listening. I've had to kind of grown fond of it within my own practice, having to listen to it be read, my own stories be read to me, and have me read it out loud, and just hearing how the sentences sound and the alliteration and it almost becomes a song after you've heard it enough times and you hear the rhythm in the voice. Degen, what you got, brother?
I just want to make sure that Mr. Fast Handsome is not posting the week 1 story in the Discord. We're at week 52, just to make sure.
Whoops, the new story is there.
You're going to remove it.
No, kidding.
No mud, no lotus, people. This is what building in the open looks like. You get to fail forward and enjoy the process, the journey that may come. Designer, what you got, brother? The stage.
Hey, I just wanted to say happy to see you. I haven't got a chance to say Happy New Year's. Happy to the Iowa team. I never say it right, man. Yeah, Rambler, Handsome B, yo, Happy New Year's to you guys and everybody. I just wanted to say excited for the space and what the year has to bring, dude. You're an incredible wordsmith and excited to see all the stories and everything you guys all create this year. So I just wanted to spread some positive vibes. I'm on my way home, got off work, so just want to hop up and say what's up, y'all.
Nice one, my man. No, definitely travel safely. The buckle season will be there before you know it. Hopefully you'll be able to scoot to work and enjoy some of that splendor along the way, if that's still possible within your route, of course. And even with, just that day-to-day activity, though, the day-to-day grind, that in and of itself, if viewed properly, becomes a story. I'm a big fan of the idea that the way we do anything is the way we do everything. And those narrative structures ultimately become the scaffolding onto which we frame our day, so that the grocery list becomes something far more important than anything written by Shakespeare or Chaucer. So that time with the person you've spent time with for 30 years, is still as marvelous and miraculous as the first day that you fell in love with them, unencumbered by the trauma of your experience. Let's see here. We got Shiba King taking the stage. What is up? Point, people, is to make of your life, a wake walking masterpiece. As Dolly says, stop trying to create art and become it. Thank you. I'm here all night, bumbling around, trying to get people on stage.
Hello?
Hello.
What's up? Customer number 1.
Hello, I am here to talk about my project. How's everybody doing? We're actually about to make some spaghetti noodles. I'm hungry as shit. But I said I could support my friends. How are you? That's all I got for you.
No worries. We are impeccable. We're just gathered around talking about a story. Hopefully you're using a fun recipe, or it's just something you yourself gleaned in your travels, or something simple and simplistic. As long as it gets you the nourishment you need to keep you out here fighting in the mean streets of these primordial wastelands of web. I would like to welcome Bolivio Supremo to the stage.
Oh, you bunch of art geeks. What are y'all doing? Y'all just arting it up like a bunch of nerds. I love it.
No, we gotta have the bonfire roaring for all the types. Freaks, the
Knuckle
geeks.
draggers, the nerds. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. I see a couple of bona fide super freaks, handsome bastards, bald ass, and Yamazas, crazy braids. I don't know, all kinds of freaks in here.
I don't.
Y'all let anybody on the conference couch, won't you?
Well, yeah, it's a cozy place. You got plenty of room, lots of depth. You can put your feet up, maybe find some change down in the cushions, maybe a remote or two. Who knows? But it's a place where you can just relax, enjoy, listen to me read something yourself. You got anything from the recipe room, or maybe something you can sneak off from T Max?
I wasn't prepared. We just drove out of the Ring Camp Millionaire's driveway. I
Oh,
was like, let me catch the conference couch if I can. Spunky Peanut Nation.
mm-hmm. You see the extravaganza. Maybe next time though. For sure, for sure. Let's get HB back on stage. I need another co-host. Who's going to co-host? Here we go. The Rambler's responsible. We'll give him the co-host. See what he does. See how he fares up there.
I love the Rambo. He's a crazy freak show.
Right?
Let's go.
There we go. Order in the house. Order. Two of Web3's finest rambling fools on stage.
Okay, you're out.
Mute.
Mute MBTTM, folks. Mute boot to the moon. That's the Yamaza two-step.
Hello? Yeah, just want to jump in here real quick because we're talking about like mega spaces and doing one soon. Seems like King Pepe also wants to do a mega space and wants to make it big with like he's offering $5,000 in assets to give away, which is a lot of assets. I'm assuming there's a lot of sheesh that's going to be involved. We should definitely tie that. Everybody message King. There's a mega space coming soon in the next week or two. It's going to be huge. And there might be 2 mega spaces that might be coming up a week or two, which would just be double the monies and the fun. But yeah, check out King's post. I'll probably raid that and stick some spunkies in there too and be like, we're there. I'll pin it actually. Hold on. Right back.
He was talking about a mega space.
Yeah, like mega space.
Oh yeah. Nah, that's how you you just load the catapult with the pluff mud and you aim it at the mega space. Small, miss small, and boom. Next thing you know, it's like a trillion green dots rolling around out there.
Trillion.
Trillion.
I didn't work all day. Did BTC hit 50,000 yet?
No, Jim Cramer said it's unstoppable, so we probably about to hit the dip.
Yeah, the dip. Let's see. Since Jim Cramer talked this morning, Bitcoin's down about 2%. So, yeah, it's under 45 now. GG. That was the top. I'm selling everything. I actually want to buy something today. I have $1,000. I don't know what I want though. I don't know if I want coins. I don't know if I want NFTs. I don't know if I want another blue chip. I don't know. I'm so indecisive. I don't know where to spend it.
When in doubt, BTC, baby, BTC.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, DCA to BTC.
I mean, whatever. I'll catch a 3. If I'm going to put it in Bitcoin, I might as well put it in fucking Shiba or Bonk and watch it fly. Sorry. Not shilling them, but yeah. I mean, I have Shiba and I have Bonk and I have Sheesh. And I have Sheesh on Soul. Yeah.
No, it's marinated over meatballs.
I'm about to have some meatballs. Let's go. They're actually so good. My friend who makes the meatballs. It's delicious. I can't wait. I'm so starving.
What's going on in the Netherlands? Rambler?
A bunch of people jumping into frozen water for fun. That's about it.
Is it the Polar Bear Club over there? What's happening?
Yeah, they just had that the other day. It's pretty much just the 2 young gentlemen on the stage with us. They just hang out with a bunch of really hot women. So I don't know. And they're on the beach.
Yeah, that's life.
That's life.
Well, I know one thing. They must have a lot of money.
Yeah, well, they're rich. But yeah.
They're rich because they're bald and
It's the bald thing. Once you shave,
almost
become
as
rich.
green.
Yeah. All successful people are bald. I think it's pretty much true, right?
That's why I got a thick mane. My grandma said it's kind hair, kind that grows on a horse's ass.
GG. So you have a lot of. Never mind.
But do you see how quickly we can composite narrative structure together just for bits and pieces of the sentences that we say? A thatch of something that Leah's grandma used to say about the kindness of his hair, combined with the meatballs prepared by Shiva King's friend, and the story of what he'll do with his earnings and where he will place them. Will they lead him to roads of prosperity, or will he befall themselves into fear, uncertainty, and doubt? Who knows what the
1-0.
story will lead us?
0.
So long as we get to share a little bit of time together. That's really the goodie of it. That's what you pay to go to Disney for that goodie, essentially.
Comfort.
Yo, Brother Bear, talk to me.
Tell us a little bit about what we're doing today and what you have in store.
Yeah, no, we're just going to read from last week's diary entries. Then we'll maybe try to get some alpha about where the story's going, discuss a little bit of what we kind of gleaned from Michelle about his story creation or character creation techniques. I'll read something from Circumfusion, and I was thinking about starting to read my own book starting at the very beginning instead of just jumping y'all around and give something kind of episodic, kind of like the way Spunky has it, episodically produced, just so there's that audio catalog um, of the story and its progression for people to go back and listen to, and for myself to kind of see where my errors are while reading, as I'm going to have to do the audiobook, and I just got a cool Yeti mic ordered so I can start recording the audio files for those chapters. But go ahead.
Do you think you can give us something like a vocal trailer of your own book and the story that you're telling? Just
Yeah,
not with the spoilers, but just give us a little bit of an idea what it's about. That because you know the story, so when you start in the beginning, you already know what's going to happen later on, of course. But if you would just give us some sort of where is it, what's happening, who's there, what's this beach all about, all those.
100%. 100%. But I think I might just start from the beginning in the prologue, just at zero, scientists pointing their telescopes at the sky, and just take you from there. And then just next week, I'll read up to a point and then, discuss it. And then next week, I'll just put a bookmark there and continue on out as what I'll be reading is the most recent revision and proofread. Just while I wait on my own proofreaders to kind of finish their process and get back to me. I definitely don't want to be idle with this thing. It's my little baby, but I definitely will each week probably to have like a synopsis of kind of what we went over last week. Kind of like reading 2 weeks worth of Spunkies. Like I'll read last week's and this week's so that people can kind of see what's happening. And just because the Spunkies are so short, they're very episodic. Diary entries, very short, as they are sent out as posts, formerly known as tweets. But yeah, mix in a little discussion, invite some people, or actually inspire some people, hopefully, to come up and share a story. Not that it has to be limited to something that's been written, but a story they've heard or that they enjoy. And the whole purpose is to create that from that deer trail to create an avenue and hopefully a throughway for the writers that are on this platform to be able to be further inspired, to inspire the inspired, essentially. That's the only thing we got. It's the currency of inspiration, people. We got to hammer it home.
Did you just say game trails to inspiration? Is that what you said?
Yes, pretty much.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, hell, it's a small path. You have to be able to see, but it ends up leading you to the watering hole.
Leo has a special ability where he can kind of redact in real time the nonsense that I say, make it make sense better than the way I said it. No, definitely.
It's just bro science. It's not better. It's just
Bro science, baby.
It's just knuckle dragger speak out there for the people like me. That's all.
Oh, I fucking love it.
How do you want to do it with when people want to come on stage? Where you just because it's your terms, you want me to let everybody up, or?
I wouldn't let everybody up, seeing as how you want as little disruption as possible. But there are certain few who definitely. I mean, you can look in the audience and see, folks who want to come up, and as well as talking to people in the DMs. Definitely, I got my screen open, so send me a DM if you want to come on stage, you want to present something, etc., etc., or the Rambler if you can't get in touch with me. I see Sarah has pulled up. Thank you for showing up, Sarah. You're amazing. Saw you had your little space, and now you got another one today. And what on Friday? What's on? Or not one today. Sorry, Star Boss has one today. There's one on Friday. There's a lot of spaces going on, a lot of movement out here on these primordial wastelands. That gets me excited. It just shows that folks are stirring from their slumber, and their heartbeat and the pulse that I've been feeling hasn't been a hallucination. I'm not that crazy yet, people, but we hang on for the ride a little bit longer. I might just surprise you. But no, so if you want to present something or contribute to the discussion of storytelling, there are plenty of great orators out there. I see Machiavelli down there, one of the great orators in our space. please contribute if you got something to say. If not, I'll probably start reading here from Spunky's diary entries if you'd
There was
like.
an old man from Nantucket.
Okay. He came to an empty oyster bucket.
Let me stop. I'm sorry.
But what did he smell? That something was for sale. But it wasn't enough to fill the bucket. See how lame that was? Plenty more of that, where that came from, folks. Plenty more. Like the dad joke of freestyle. Anywho, this is, we'll start reading to y'all, is from the Spunky diary entry. We are live on Yamaza Vision, so you'll see me kind of animated, flailing around, projecting, and inflecting, all that good stuff.
Are you sure?
But no, not shirtless.
It's your
Yamaza is shirtless. We have the thirst trap out. You know, it's kind of like the ghost trap from Ghostbusters. Just pulls you on in. Can't stop watching. Burns a splint in your mind's eye. I think Char's already there chilling. But nonsense aside, you crazy groove of freaks. This is the next 2 weeks of diary entries from our favorite chameleon, Spunky, and his journey in the landfill. Day 1. Willie, there's something I keep remembering. Something from a long, long time back. From when I was living in my glass house with those nice peoples. You remember I told you about them folks? They sure were nice, Willie. Day 2. Those peeps I was talking about, Willie, they did something once a year with a big tree with all kinds of glittering balls and a big old star on top. I have no clue why, but I do remember that everyone was in the best of moods when that tree was up. The next day, they'd be singing jolly songs and they gave each other presents. They even had socks hanging by the fire. Can you imagine having extremely hot feet when you wear them socks, Willie? Willie, those people were weird. He. Day 4, I can't shake the feeling. I also want to find a tree and decorate it, Willie. It's some kind of gut feeling, something warm and fuzzy during the cold winter nights, Willie. I sent Dumpy ahead and searched for a tree. That's right. And I'm looking for lights. Gotta have the lights. Day 5, Christmas. That's what it's called, Willie. I remember now. I found me and Dumpy a great tree. A few brown spots because of Dumpy, but I don't mind. I'm in a festive mood, Willie. I'm going to look all over the yard to find ornaments, balls and glitter, tassels to adorn. Day 6. This is going to be so nice, Willie. I even found a big garden gnome hat I can wear. Somehow that feels just right. I hung the lights, I hung the balls. I'm wearing my hat and Dumpy just farted. That means that everything is ready for the lighting of the tree, Willie. Day 7. You know what? I'm considering you to be my best friend, Willie. This time of year, you can say such things out loud and not feel embarrassed. I want to wish you, Dumpy, and everyone who's out there a Merry Christmas. I'm going to throw the light switch, Willie. And he throws the light switch. The following week. Well, Willie, my old paperback pen pal, I can feel my face, but I sure like the way the tree's looking. I'm sure all giddy and festive. Even Dumpy's stinky cloud is red and green colored. I don't know about you, but here at the junkyard, we're having a merry old Christmas. The next day, Willie, last thing I remember was finding that bottle with the guy's name on it. What's his name? Jack Daniels? He must be looking all over for his drink, and stupid old me just had to take a sip. Well, this headache must be my punishment for drinking from someone else's bottle. Day 3. Willie, I've been contemplating. If I had the power to change my life, to really turn things around, to broaden my horizon, go wander the earth, would I do it? Would I risk the chance of losing it all? That's quite a conundrum, old pal. Day 4. Where would I start, Willie? New hairdo? Not gonna happen. Learn a foreign language? I'm struggling as it is. Just sit back the bare necessities and leave the junk hole? Reinvent Spunky? Oof. Leave Dumpy? Oof. Leave three-legosaurus? Leave you, Willie? I don't know if I could do it. Day 5. Why does that cat call of a greener grass sound so beguiling? Tell me, Willie, why can't no one just be happy and content where he is? Be happy to be here now. These final days of the year got me philosophizing hard. So hard my eyes bulge, or bulge even more. Day 6. Last night I had an extremely clear insight. I'm happy right where I am, surrounded by a farting fly, a three-legged dino, and you, Willie. The one I can share my innermost with, that's you. This junk hole may not be a palace, but it's mine. Here I'm happy, Willie. Day 7. It's the last day of the year, Willie. Tomorrow starts with a whole new beginning. Imagine all the possibilities, all the friends we might meet, all the new adventures we'll have. I'm looking forward to those new beginnings. I hope you are too, Willie. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, you crazy groove of beautiful, dirty freaks. Hey, yo, let's go.
And today I was reading the story while you were telling it, and it's such a nice feeling that if you're just telling the whole story and I'm reading it at the same time, it just gives that extra vibe. It's really nice. And it was, again, comfort, amazing to hear this story from you. It's, every time I love it when you're reading it. So, thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for listening in, and my captive audience down there. No, it's a good vibe. It's a solid practice, and I didn't think before we started doing this about the power of voice. Like, of course, you think about voice, and you think about having a distinct voice, and you're giving alpha, and you're telling facts, and you're doing the things. The traditional space hosting, it's weird to even say traditional space hosting, but whatever. When you're speaking in this forum, I tend to not think of the voice as the instrument, but reading the story and reciting the quotes or the poems made me realize how much of an instrument the voice can be in this space. The way that our musician friends go around playing their instruments or their tracks. We, as storytellers, if trained properly, could be able to deliver something similar, a similar experience for folks, where they get to relax and be transported by a cyclone of unorthodox ideas designed to rip us from our body minds. We can do that just while going to the grocery store. And we can see the grocery list enamored, gilded, something more than a task, a chore. After the ecclesiastical, it's back to chopping the wood and fetching the water. And that's why story is so important, because it shows us the way. It shows us how to love, to lose, to let go, and to replant. And from that essential reap, we begin the harvest all over again. Because it's the story that never ends. It goes on and on, my friends. It started out as the hero's journey, but it wasn't what it was. Became a more mosaic because we knew we must.
I add a story.
Oh, yes, of course, but of course.
I'm not gonna read it, and somebody else is reading it. It's a little bit more than 3 minutes, right? It's called The Unfinished Fable of the Sparrows. It's the preface of a book of Nick Bostrom, right? He wrote the book Superintelligence, and it's a little short story. It's an unfinished fable. It's quite short. Nick's book from Nick Bostrom is about AI, and this is a little short story about people are building an AI without first considering how to control and motivate it. So, shall I turn it on? Yeah, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
The Unfinished Fable of the Sparrows. It was the nest-building season, and after days of long, hard work, the sparrows sat in the evening glow, relaxing and chirping away. We are all so small and weak. Imagine how easy life would be if we had an owl who could help us build our nests. Yes, said another, and we can use it to look after our elderly and our young. But give us advice and keep an eye out for the neighborhood cat, added a third. Then past us the elder bird spoke. Let us send out scouts in all directions and try to find an abandoned owlet somewhere, or maybe an egg. A crow chick might also do, or a baby weasel. This could be the best thing that ever happened to us, at least since the opening of the pavilion of unlimited grain in yonder backyard. The flock was exhilarated, and sparrows everywhere started chirping at the top of their lungs. Only Skrunkfingle, a one-eyed sparrow with a fretful temperament, was unconvinced of the wisdom of the endeavor. Quoth he,
This will surely be our undoing. Should we not give some thought to the art of owl domestication and owl taming first, before we bring such a creature into our midst?
replied Pastus. Taming an owl sounds like an exceedingly difficult thing to do. It will be difficult enough to find an owl egg. So let us start there. After we have succeeded in raising an owl, then we can think about taking on this other challenge.
There is a flaw in that plan,
Squeaked Skronkfingle. But his protests were in vain, as the flock had already lifted off to start implementing the directives set out by pastors. Just 2 or 3 spurs remained behind. Together, they began to try to work out how owls might be tamed or domesticated. They soon realized that pastors had been right. This was an exceedingly difficult challenge, especially in the absence of an actual owl to practice on. Nevertheless, they pressed on as best they could, constantly fearing that the flock might return with an owl egg before a solution to the control problem had been found.
That's the end of the story. Nobody knows how it ended. It's the unfinished fable of the sparrow.
Whoa. So it's open to interpretation how it ends, huh?
As always.
Damn. It just blew my mind with that spooky, scary story. The music. I love the music in the background of it. Very Merry Melodies-esque, you know, just adding a little bit of a ring-a-ling-ling. Now, how old is that story, and how many different variable endings probably have been created for that story, for that fable?
I'm not totally sure, but I think Nick Bostrom wrote it himself in 2014, right? Because his book was about superintelligence and AI, and this was just the preface that he wrote for it.
Wow, even better.
Hello, Sarah.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me up. I've been marinating on a lot of things today. I love that story. I've heard it a couple times, and it's very interesting how it's kind of come into its own now in the age of AI. You know, when they were writing that or that little preface, that's when AI was just behind closed doors, and the average everyday consumer didn't have access to the large language models that we're playing with now. And I just think it is such a powerful metaphor for what we are right at this moment. We are an unfinished fable. And I was listening to John Nasta earlier today in an AI space. He's a very gifted writer and always has some interesting things to ponder. And he brought up the point that we are in the third window of humanity. And I thought, I've never heard that term before. And it was fascinating because he said, look, the telescope was the first window where it invited humanity to see beyond anything that we could ever imagine, you know, the universes and the stars and things. He goes, the second window was the microscope. And that's where humanity discovered that there was a whole world that they didn't know existed, so tiny, kind of like Dr. Seuss and the Who's and Whoville. And, you know, Horton hears this Who, you know, he's the only one that can see the universes on a dandelion puff or whatever. And then the third window being AI and how it's going to show humanity all of the realities that we've never dreamed possible. And I was just blown away by that. I've been thinking about it all afternoon, is that the storytellers themselves are the ones that hold every possibility in their hand. And those that can harness the ability to tell a good story, one that's worth retelling, are the ones that are going to redefine what it means to be human in general. It's just a very profound and humbling thing, how the creative has been gifted such powerful tools, and how heated the debate is now getting, where people who are truly afraid, the claws are coming out. And, you know, it's just a fascinating time to be alive. But thank you, Comfort, for hosting the space. As always, it's always a joy to hear your voice and read stories that that Spunky and the community at IO team have come up with. It's a privilege to see all this unfold and to hear people that I care so deeply about kind of tell the little bits and pieces and contribute in such a powerful way. I couldn't imagine even 4 years ago, Comfort, you know, when you think about how, you know, all across the world we are, but you're reading a story from a person's pen in the Netherlands. And it's for a joint community. I just think that's so cool.
Right? Speaking of that, though, Sarah, have you any of the little bits and bobs from some of the narrative you've been working on?
Okay, so I can't tell you everything, but I can tell you this. For the past
Thank you.
week, I have been marinating and very steeped in Mayan tradition and where howler monkeys were kind of deified as the scribes. And I will tell you how delightful it is to go through history and see certain things through the prism of ancient peoples. For instance, the Mayans believed that there were many different layers to society or to the heavens and our existence, planes of existence. And there were 13 above and 9 below. And I kept thinking about how did they know about Dante's Inferno? Dante Inferno was written when the 1200s. Mayans were way before then, but they both had the same kind of concept. And where did it come from? And that little seed of an idea. And how do I, plant little seeds and nuggets that will encourage people to look back and think, this is where the story came from and how it fits into the digital overlay and Web3 as we know it. But I will tell you, I love howler monkeys and I love the Mayan. And I'm just so giddy as an author to be able to create stories and assume personalities that obviously I could never be in real life. I can be 1,000 characters all at once. Joseph Campbell, it's great.
Oh man, that's a very cool little thing to find. That the scribes were these monkeys and weave it in. There's a fun thing I vaguely remember. It's just a shard of a recollection, but it deals with South American astronomers and how they, archaeologists found these pins, kind of. Really, they're just like 3 foot high walls, and they're all connected together. There was no entrance to them, and there's things that look like seats around them. And they're like, oh, it's like a fighting thing or something like that. And they eventually realized that what they were doing was filling these basins with water and allowing those reflective pools to mirror the night sky, so they would have like an HD 70, 120-inch TV of the cosmos, which then they redacted into their mythos, to their into their legends and into the logos of their day-to-day life. It's so important that we do tell the right stories and remember, where we've been and where we've failed and how we're flawed, because that is what makes us beautiful. That despite that bruise, that we're still just as sweet.
Well, it's fascinating, and I think as storytellers in general, our job is to archive a point in time and space and then allow folks to finish the fable, right? Once it's set out free into those, we don't know how people are going to read it or how they're going to take it. There are some childhood books like The Velveteen Rabbit or The Little Prince that I literally read every year. Just because they have this, Lord of the Rings is another one, maybe C.S. Lewis's essays or, just different authors that have struck me over the years, Boethius actually too, in the Consolation of Philosophy. But you look at these little things, or Aurelius, Marcus Aurelius, you visit him every day and you always find something new. But I also think it's interesting how, as an archiver, you assume a role, and it's no different than if you're an artist or anybody that creates. I mean, I think the hardest part sometimes is when you're creating something, knowing that the person that consumes it may not consume it in the way that you thought they should. It's like the artist saying, well, I use this paint and I use this and this and this and this is how I framed it, and they actually bought the work because the frame was cool or it matched their bathroom. The book filled a purpose and was a doorstop, whatever. It's kind of interesting to think about it in those terms. I don't know, I'm looking for it right now. An indie author that I think he had maybe, 6,000 followers at the most. And he made a comment on a post that was not abrasive. It was just using his God-given gifts of a writer and explaining basically an Animal Farm kind of situation. And he ended up having, I think, 30,000 people follow him that day. He and his wife. His wife kind of fills the orders, and they had written a self-published book on Amazon, and it had never gotten a single eyeball. But because of Web3 and the digital overlay, this indie author is on the top best-selling list, like number 5. And it was just a fascinating thing because he was a sci-fi writer, which is very difficult for people who know sci-fi writing, very difficult genre to break into because, there's a glut of that kind of, information in that genre, and it's very difficult to get eyeballs on it. And The Thief of Fire is the book that he wrote, and I'm so excited for him. I just have been absolutely cheering from the cheap seats for this random person, and how he has garnered so many eyeballs on his work, and how the underdog actually won in this situation, how legacy media has been chasing him to get this book published, and how he's like, nah, this is the way it's going to be from now on. And it's just been so much fun to watch. And I just encourage everybody in the room today that you have a story that needs to be told. And for the first time in history, there are no gatekeepers. And that is such a beautiful and powerful thing. So, yeah.
So do you think we still need agents?
That's a tough thing because I have an agent, but it depends. Because here's the thing. You use the mechanical advantage. Now, I know what my shortcomings are, right? If somebody wanted me to write something, I'd say sure, and I wouldn't even charge them because I love doing that, right? Sometimes having an agent, whether it's to put your work or to represent you, is a smart thing. It's no different than having a lawyer, in terms of, being your best interest and stripping the emotional part out of the transaction. It's an important thing to think about because I know for me personally, a lot of the stuff that I've created for myself is insanely personal, right? And I don't think that I would be able to sell it in a non-emotional way. And that kind of has its own, pros and cons to it. Ghostwriter, I'm creating for my customer, right? And if I do my job, you don't even see me. You just see them and their storyline. But it's a personal choice. And if you're going to spend all your time peddling your book, then that means you're not writing. And unless you have skills that are incredibly honed and well-rounded when it comes to marketing and persistence and making sure that it's in these local stores, then having a middleman do that for you be a wise thing, because then it frees up your time to do what you were born to do, kind of thing. But I don't know. I have an agent, but it's more for my artwork in terms of, making sure that it gets into the right folks' hands to make those decisions in licensing. But in terms of writing, I don't know. I have editors that I have to kind of, submit to. And that's the other thing too. The minute you have an agent, you're submitting a piece of your autonomy, and it's about 25 to 35% of your royalties go to them up front. So, and the average legacy media, when you think about a book, let's say you're selling a book for $19.99, right? And it's going through a traditional legacy publisher. You'll be lucky to get $1 a book at the most, right? And let's say they've paid you, upfront, to kind of sit down and write this book, right? That goes against your royalties. So if you don't sell enough afterwards, there's a chargeback. If your book ever goes into the bargain bin, a lot of people realize that if it goes on clearance or it's marked down below that wholesale cost, you don't get paid on it. So that royalty is hinging on the fact that it's being sold at retail cost. So there have been books where I've written with fellow artists, and we only got paid royalties for the first 90 days, and then they discount the book and none of us get paid. So, it just depends on how your contracts are written and whatnot, but it is definitely something to think about. But I will say this, let's say you write your book through IO Team, right? You're going to get more marketing by the Green Dot Nation than you would an intercessory that just goes to the book fair in Germany once a year, and make sure that it's timed for Christmas, or those kinds of sales. So, you're at a point in history where you can call the shots and you can make strategic alliances with folks that will give you the mechanical advantage. And increase your visibility in ways that we've never had before. So, and watching this thing play out with Derek, I am absolutely enthralled because I've never seen anything quite like it. I have seen things where a book title has gone and done some incredible things. You know, the Twilight series would be one of those things where it catches fire. It's not like, let's say, a Hunger Games where Collins actually wrote the book in order to get, she was writing it side by side with the movie scripts and, you know, the makeup artists and the clothing lines and everything. She was writing it the opposite in order to make sure that it had the publicity behind it. But I've never seen anything like this with an indie just author and how it's catching fire, you know, in a very unique way. And they're maintaining their autonomy and getting to call the shots. It's kind of cool to see a tag team husband wife really knock the ball out of the park.
That means there's hope. That means
There's always hope. There's always hope.
Oh, but there's like real hope that what I've sensed and felt and breathed from this ecosystem is viable if we have enough tact to execute, you know, or else it's just a hallucination. No need for that. That is phenomenal, though. I just love usurping the legacy models, just because the gatekeepers, it's just so many of them. It's so strong there. Like you said, it's, you know, you give your book to somebody whose really only leg up is they go to the German book fair. You know, that to me isn't doing story justice, and is, you know, it's detrimental to storytelling. I think I remember seeing a video of, like, you know, this guy who has a storage locker where I guess in the 80s or 70s probably he had people just mail them their unpublished works. It's just a storage locker filled with just stories that no one will ever read. It's where I get the unwritten pages of history from, you know, and the idea of having one's work cast there and shelved in a library of a city where no one enjoys to read.
Well, you know, this happens in all industries. And that's something that you have to marinate on. When I was at Maker Faire, and I've told this story a number of times, so forgive me if I'm acting like an old lady telling the same story over and over again. But, you know, we would set up on Thursdays, Fridays, and you would see these kids with cardinals of incredible innovation. There was a kid that actually had an experiment using cockroaches to identify diabetes, and it had like a 99.9% accuracy rate. And this thing, what he had created, cost maybe $10 at the most, you know, but it had such a powerful use case. And we would watch people go up and down the aisles before the show opened. And you knew that they were venture capitalists. You knew that they had money in deep pockets. And we watched this kid, you know, receive a check. His parents received a check. And under the condition that he never talks about his project and it never sees the light of day. Because you have the pharmacy companies that make so much money off of these kinds of drugs and creating drug mules, you know, people that are stuck taking medicine for the rest of their lives. You know, it happens in every industry. As a storyteller, if you have a very powerful storyline, sometimes, you know, they'll buy your story just because they had another one that kind of fell along the same vein, but they wanted to hype that one person or that series, or it had, you know, I've seen people in legacy media sign an author that was not a very good author for the sole reason to make sure that they could never get published anywhere else, or they would sign them, you know, to make a deal with their uncle or aunt, or have an in with them. You know, signing a kid would give them the opportunity to have a dinner with the parents, or those kinds of things. And, you know, business is done in various ways. And, you know, usually the folks that are not in the gang, it's like what George Carlin said, it's a big club, but we're not in it. And,
Exactly.
you
Money.
know, yeah. And you just think about it. This is a time in history where meritocracy is actually going to matter. That if you have a viable and amazing idea, then people are going to see it. And I think that's very powerful, because there are a lot of brilliant people that I've met over the years, absolutely crazy smart people. And, you know, they didn't speak the language of business. You know, when someone comes up to you and says, well, I need your business, you know, I need your business plan, I need your numbers and blah, blah, blah. and you have a kid that has never spoken in that language before. They don't know what a SOW is, a scope of work. They don't know what any of this stuff is. And because they don't have the vernacular of business, they get short seated and they're not allowed to have a seat at the table, and their ideas never come to fruition. It could have been something that changed the world, but because they didn't have the proper handshake or the proper diction, they weren't given a chance to present. And now we have the tools at our fingertips, whether it's AI or any number of other tools. It could just be our network, the people that we have in the room with us today that help us hone the messaging and tell the story in a new way. And I think people are becoming more discerning and more understanding that there are different ways to communicate. And, especially in business, there's certain ways that, folks are going to be seen and heard for the first time in history. It's pretty special.
Oh, and I mean, I got the opportunity of working with one of the more talented people I've probably gotten to work with, like college professors and all, and getting to kind of write the circumfusion novella with you, to me was beyond my hopes and dreams for what was possible out here on this blockchain. In such a short time to go from concept and barely feasible plots, different plots, that were left on a Discord server, and taking them and just going through the whole process of seeing Daniel's sketches and hearing the light and the joy in his voice as he sees this thing coming to fruition. So wild. And that's just you and me randomly just bumping around on the blockchain. Imagine what happens when it's just whole swatches of the creative, of power couples being able, you're having like 10 different authorial couples or whatever, just writing and scripting and wielding AI in this crazy collaborative self-editing shrink the lag time between what we can envision and what we can create type of motif.
It's funny. This is the writer's room, right? For folks that have never been in entertainment or have known media. One of my dear friends, her name's Kelly Cheek, and her best friend in the whole world is Jack Black. And they would sit, kind of composing skits, humorous skits. And you had this natural city of two people with a quirky somewhere. And it's the same thing here. Each person listening, you have the opportunity to partner and collaborate with people for the first time in history that get your quirky, weird sense of humor, right? That you're kind of choosing folks that follow your same path in your North Star. And when you have that kind of cross-pollination, and you have the ability, circumfusion was really unique in that it really laid the foundation for collaborative work. You're going to find more blockchains, especially, kind of figuring out ways to make sure that people are going to be paid or remunerated, that are going to be valued for value, for their time and energy, for those units of attention. And, there's a very foreseeable future. I don't know if you found NFT God's latest post, but Twitter has been talking about this for a long time, where your long posts are going to generate revenue. This is just breaking within the past 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes. And for folks like us who actually like to write and tell a short story, a 2-minute mystery, for lack of a better term, we could have that serialization that Dickens had and that, Mark Twain had and get paid for it. So, and circumfusion kind of made it so that the use case was there. I apologize for the dogs. Amazon's here, so I'm mute.
I love it. I love hearing the pups in the background, arfing and barking all the live long way. New packages. They probably love it. They're like, there they are again. Get them. Ruff, 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 ruff. Let me get them all these smells. Oh man, I can't wait for the day when you can publish on X. And also when we finish that, I mean, it's so simple. All we gotta do is just put this function in the smart contract, create the PDF with the Hyzine, bingo, bango, bungo, flipbook, NFT, store on the blockchain. So close. So MFing close. And it's not to say to replace the smell of a good book, but to open up more avenues and brains of operational procedure for the creative souls to unfurl through. They should always be present at almost every level of social commentary. The creative should be there leading versus bowing at the heel to create something that'll get shared, that'll get distributed. There has to be a healthy dialogue so that the middle way can be found between the artistic desires and the public's need to have said desire satiated. But there also must be a marrying of what is profoundly returned with us when we, steep ourselves into the same waters as the mystics and the madmen. Sarah, what you got?
I polluted the nest up top with the.
Yeah, I love when you do this.
All right, so first of all, NFT God, you have to pay attention, right? There's a call to action to everybody in the room today, is that you have a story that's worth retelling. If you don't have the necessary tools or skills or acumen, look to your left and look to your right, because there are a lot of us that have done this kind of thing. And sometimes it's not about parking your butt in the chair, although that is part of it. It's just showing that it's, a viable, that it can be done. Comfort's been writing books for his entire life. Let's just face it, he's a natural born bard and storyteller. And, sometimes as authors, you get captured into your worlds. You've got 9 books and you get captured. But having a minimal viable product and pushing it to the market, even if it's not perfect, right? Just to prove you can do it. That's the NaNoWriMo challenge, for instance, that 30 days to write 50,000 words. For when you can sit yourself down in a chair for 30 days and prove that it's viable, that you can actually sling together 50,000 words, oh my gosh, the whole world opens up. Each of you have the ability to do that. And I will tell you, as a mom, you all have to, because the first mover advantage is closing quickly. And after a while, you're going to have an oversaturation of material and content that is created using augmented, kinds of things, AI, large language models, and finding the humans, the proof of humans is going to be very difficult for some things, right? But I'm encouraging you, each and every one of you, this is 2024. We're day 2, right? And we have a leap year. So technically, it's still January 1. Start writing that story. This gentleman up top, his name's Derek, or is it Derek or Devon? Devon. It was
Devon Eriksen, to be fair.
Yes, so. Devon Eriksen. I'll tell you what, it's hard, but I love this story, and the reason why I think it's provocative and cool is because he chose to be respectful and disagree with a big gun in the space, and he said, "Look, I respectfully disagree with you. This is communism, what you're trying to propose." And I think it was how he had laid out his entire thesis, but it was so crafted, and he used his skills as a writer to have a wonderful open dialogue, and it was so respectful. And this is what we used to do in debate class. You would show up to debate and it could be a very hot topic. It could be a spicy take, and you would get a piece of paper and it could be the take that is the moral opposite of whatever it is that you believed in, right? You would go in there as a constitutional class. You believe in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and your teacher would hand you a slip of paper saying, okay, I need you to argue why the Constitution should be abolished, right? And then you would have to think through and put yourself in the other person's shoes. He did it so masterfully. And as a result, people came out of the work to just experience this writer. And it had nothing to do with his story, his self-published story. His wife, bless her, is the one that formatted the volume or the novel. And I just thought it was such a great story, an underdog story. Humans love underdog stories. They love people who rise above adversity and, rise the cream to the top. And I thought it was such a great way for this man to show his skills in a very unique and interesting way. But he's continued the dialogue, that long form content, getting him huge amounts of traction and gaining eyes with, people with huge followings. And now that you have NFT God pointing out in the code that these are the kinds of things that are going to be profitable for all of us, and honing your skills now is going to be important.
Well said. I definitely want to get them onto the space one day if we can.
Oh, I think it'd be cool. You have to go through the wife because he's an introvert. Yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah.
a total introvert. Does not. He likes to write, right? So he's writing from that passive voice behind the typewriter or behind the screen. But she's the Spitfire, and so and she also doesn't have a lot of folks following her. So
Her name is
getting
Acrobatic.
that would
What's
be
her
the
name?
end. That would be the end.
Her name is Acrobatic Hobbit of the wife.
There are actually a couple people. The acrobatic hobbit is wife number 2. He doesn't have multiple wives, but she's the one that does the coding and things in the background, from what I understand. But it was interesting, the dialogue that I got to open up with them. They had started getting a lot of folks in the DM saying, well, I'm a publisher here, sign this release. And you're like, no, don't click any links because, it infiltrates. A lot of folks in Web3 know not to, do that, but these folks did not. And so it's just really a cool story. So I would love to hear his voice in spaces. I don't think he's ever done one.
We got to get him in.
I
I
think that would
myself
be
am an introverted writer. Like, I will like turtle shell the world away because the dragons are always toughest at the gate. The bar is always calling, or the beach, or the fun times, the good times. It's always there, thankfully. Um, but when I'm trying to like redact from the ethos of creation into the mythos of my imagination, and then further swizzled into the logos of my pen to the paper. It just requires a little bit more concentration, than worrying about what Becky and Susie are doing and Larry and Tom are getting into down at the pub. The great novel won't write itself there. I tried. Trust me. That's why I have 14 commonplace books just filled with bird songs and thatches of this and snippets of that, all for later use, of course. Got 9 books to fill. We ain't stopping now. Sarah, do you happen to have Circumfusion nearby? Would you like to read today? How's your voice feeling? I can also read, but I don't want to bore the people with just my voice.
I have to go. Just a second.
What? We get stuff blessed up. Sarah gonna do a reading, Circumfusion. Amazing. As you can tell, I am stoked, people. If you were on your Mazda Vision, you'd see that little ditty I just did. Pretty much just hands in the air, flailing around, but you get the drift. Oh, how amazing is that? Learning of an author that was slipping towards obscurity, and then having Web3 kind of help push
All
the
right.
tail
Chapter
towards
you want.
more ears. Wherever you want to go. We just did J. Ron's boat, so that was
I like J. Ron's boat.
oh yeah, the transformations
All
and
right.
stuff.
I'll find one. Just a second.
Yeah. No worries. I love Daniel's damn drawings. I love them. They're so cool. Just a little doodle here or there. Handcrafted by fucking Hashlips himself, the OG of Web3. Shoot.
All right. No idea. I just opened it up. So we're going to start on page 122. And those of you that have your book, you can read along. I've noticed that this is how folks will learn the language too. Right? We're going to read the top of chapter 34. So hopefully it'll sound okay. But this is one of my favorite parts in the story too. I love listening when the story is read because it reminds me of all the sticky notes that are all over our computers. And for folks that don't know how Bert would be in the background, and I would write a sentence and then destroy it, and then I'd see his little icon pop up, and I thought, oh my gosh, this person is watching my writing process and thinking I'm a complete idiot. And so it was a very humbling experience. Chapter 34, page 1.
Was not the case.
Sketchy Labs was a vast cornucopia of wonders, and the delightfully fantastical in various stages of inception. As the corridor expanded into a giant open space, groups could be seen working together on shared problems. Alice smiled as they passed a line of robotic pits. The group of grease-stained hood rats, apes, all wearing steampunk goggles and brightly colored overalls, owned the vibe and looked like they could have easily dropping a record. Further down, The test field was populated with apes donning experimental limbs of all sorts and manners, attempting to control the appendages and feed each other, something akin to stiff jello. Past sculptured courtyards where teal and violet apes solved stone puzzles with their mind, and painting studios where pyrokinetics finessed flames against metal canvases. A fab lab belched out puffs of strong-smelling mist that took the shape of mythical titans. Ethan waved at the crew getting haircuts in La Barberia, playing them in Chilean, anything I once wanted, slots and chit-chatting about the day's happenings. Alice turned to him. A barber shop? Here? Ethan's laugh was genuine and deep. Where do you suppose one of my sweet disposition would go to get a decent trim? Incidentally, we have a number of bodegas as well. Alice's eyes widened. An unseen voice yelled from somewhere high up, "Hey there! You're standing where Colin's gonna sprout." Just then, Detective Sketchy stumbled at the sight of VR architects swinging from harnesses stacked miniaturized Coliseum columns on an asteroid orbiting what appeared to be an actual black hole. The lines between what was real and imagined in this emerging multi-layered utopian renaissance became more and more blurred with each passing step. Alice pointed to an outcrop of tiny dinosaurs meandering alongside what appeared to be a talking cat. Iris, are those purple brontos? Iris broke into a wide grin. It appears Kelvin has adopted yet another project needing fostering. I do believe that other delightful creature might be Chinaerosaurus. Lovely, isn't it? It happens often here in the labs. Many projects find themselves within the many layers of sanctuary we try to cultivate. There are times where things get, well, abandoned. There are many nurturing souls feel compelled to give those folks a home, a place to mend. Alice and Detective Sketchy took in everything they were witnessing. Things that should have been impossible were being explored and discussed in ways that the conventional outside world could never know or truly understand. Detective Sketchy looked down at his feet and noticed for the first time that the tile work had backlit shifting words. Iris, what is this document? The party looked down collectively to investigate what the detective was referring to. Nodding her head, Iris answered. We tread on the shoulders of giants, all the giants who gave of themselves, so that we may enjoy the fruits of their labor. That specific section, well, it's very special. Satoshi's white paper. You will fit bits of this piece scattered amongst many projects here. His work, coupled with many other pioneering souls, spanning across the ages and planes of existence, are the reasons so many things here can exist. The lives we chose for ourselves do not follow convention. In the world, out there, could an ape like me have a job? She looked over at Alice. Would you have imagined that your lab partner and cohort all this time was a walking, talking, scientifically enhanced and evolution-defying ape? She shook her head and smiled. A little economy has existed, those willing to live outside the complacency of societal everydayness. Towards the end of the line, having exceeded all expectations and preconceived notions, they stumbled upon a quaint classroom of AI wordsmiths, weaving narratives much like the way a composer coaxed music notes to spiral up to the balcony seats. The symphony of machines, learning the quirks and foibles of humanity without relinquishing their autonomosity, was an intoxicating tune. Iris had somehow hoped that something in the whirling busyness of the labs might capture Alice's attention and distract her from embarking on her self-imposed mission impossible. Unfortunately, nothing had. The TSW hub came into view and focused Alice's full attention on her exit strategy. So you'll have the rest of it to know where she's going and what she's up to. But I love the makerspace. I love the makerspace. It's so much fun.
It's such a Batcave meets, Superman's Isolation Crystal Cave meets Reed Richards' fantastic Rick and Morty dimension. I mean, it's whatever you can imagine is going on in there.
What's so cool though is when you think about it. I only read 2.5 pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 2.5 pages, we had Theo's projects, we had Calvin's, we had the IO team's projects, we had the Utopian Renaissance, which is Ashley's project. You had 1, 2, 3. You had 6 people mentioned from the various ecosystems and communities. This is something that's pretty interesting when you think about the art of collaboration and how the storylines of one another kind of weave themselves in, right? And one of the things that I thought was such a tremendous privilege was to weave in things that mattered, not just to me, but to each other, to the folks in this room, and how many people had spent their time and energy investing in other folks. And especially in this space where everything seems so extractive, each of these people added to the story and made it such a worthwhile thing. And when it reads out, sometimes it's tough to read out loud. You're just kind of pulling it out from the air, but it brings a smile to my face because technology connected all of us, and every person mentioned is an author captured in the metadata. So after we escape our mortal coils, you're all authors and a part of a ever evolving storyline, and it is bigger than the sum of its parts, and it's pretty amazing to think about.
Exactly. For the poet Roland Barthes, in his book The Lover's Discourse, he says, after we failed to deify our lovers and save us from the moil, and we failed to rightly imagine godhood, we've failed to save ourselves from the mortal coil, that the only thing that does save us from the mortal coil is our art. And I go back to Dali when he says, stop trying to make art and become it. If given proper discipline and principles, humility, and acknowledging your own cowardice and hypocrisy and the cleverness that leads you down those roads, we can make our lives these wake walking dreams. It's just up to us to tell the better story to ourselves and have the essential philosophies that make us not sorry and get stuck on the state without raising the stage, to compel us to complete the hero's journey. I didn't get the job, good. I didn't get the publisher, good. On to the next one. To keep pressing forward and to have, that love of one's process and the journey. And it does seem like pie in the sky stuff, but it's essential when you feel the weight of the world crippling you as it bears down upon your shoulder, or your boss has their boot upon your neck. The story that you tell yourself about your strength, perseverance, it'll be essential for getting you to the other side. And I guarantee you, though, that once you make it through, what comes next will be marvelous. Where you did not give up along the way. You finished your verse and contributed to the greater lessons that may beseech us all. Yay, yay.
Well, I have a question for the folks that are listening in. If they are writing a story, what process are they in? What point of the process, I should say, are they in? And how do you get unstuck? That is one of the things that happens a lot, is that you've hit a hole in the plot, and you've dismantled, or the plausible lie has collapsed. It's that moment in Inception where the top stops spinning and, the whole entire illusion is falling apart. I've been thinking about the folks that show up and how to encourage them to take the next step. And so I've been marinating and thinking, the space that I'm doing on Mondays and Fridays, maybe midnight on Wednesdays, we don't know, has no other purpose other to be the refrigerator where, macaroni and glitter, beautiful works of art get to be, in pride of place, and just pointing out the things that people are building. But a lot of times it's that act of being stuck that prevents the story from ever manifesting or coming out into fruition. And, how do you get unstuck? It's usually by talking it through with somebody trusted, or helping somebody else. And sometimes it extracts a whole new storyline. And so if you use the purple bubble down below, and you have a question on your process or where to go next, you can ask Grok, obviously, but you could also ask, some of the folks in the room that have been writing and creating those storylines and interact, because it's hard to talk about what advice to give if you don't know what problem folks are facing. Maybe there are too many storylines. Maybe there's just, so many characters. You've got Game of Thrones going on and, a red wedding in the background, and you're just killing off your darlings left and right, and no one's standing, and at that point you start writing about the throne. But I'm curious to know what other folks are thinking about and what things are building. What kind of lore are you building around your projects that folks want to hold on to and retell other folks? When we think about Spunky and we think about that ecosystem and the garbage heap, where they're kind of writing these diary stories, we are now becoming embedded in that story as well. The things that he's coming across, the various implements and tools and cast off things that are becoming, parts of the storyline. So I've just been marinating on that too. What are the people struggling with? Because just sitting and chit-chatting about writing is basically the 1-800-JUSTIFY call to procrastinate and not write when you're supposed to be. You're sitting amongst friends talking about writing instead of writing, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And it saves it from becoming this flower parade. You get to get past the glitz and the glamour and think about where you do fail and falter.
I mean, I had an editor once upon a time, kid you not. I turned in one of the best stories I thought I ever had written. And she basically wrote on the cover, "Your title was the only thing worth saving."
Ouch.
Yeah, I know, right? And I thought, wow. But those are the kinds of things that we need to have. We need to know, if it's a sink or swim. You have to have those folks that will give you constructive criticism without breaking your heart.
I mean, my last editor, he like ripped the narrative in half, basically. It was like, here you go. And I essentially had to come up with, well, not completely come up, I just had to adapt what was already happening and dive in towards the more cyberpunkian tropes. Just a little bit more. Even though it was originally supposed to be sci, not a fi. I wanted to be like solar punk. So that the technology that's demonstrated, the 50-story skyscraper converted into a vertical farm that, pulls in solar, wind, water, it's Wi-Fi connected to an array of other things, that is something that you could put in Detroit. You could in any major city and have it happen. Or the Manta Array recycling stations, the Mars project, where he has these wacky flailing floating boon arms out in the Atlantic current, kind of scooping up trash before it gets to the archipelago where the story is taking place. It's like those things are viable. Like we can do those things with what we have on hand. Because I wanted to showcase what the leap would look like as we went from what we have on hand to the breakneck speed of AI engagement. Uh, and but the damn story, Sarah, kept scaffolding. It kept growing. It wouldn't stop. It was supposed to just be a guy, a spy on the beach, and then it turned into this whole secret hidden history of the earth, million-year-old human civilization, pulling its conspiracy theories, weaving NFT projects into the ethos of those 333 possible worlds that existed before our own. So that the sacred timeline could be intact. It was out of this world. But I think I got a handle on it. I capped it at 9 books. If I don't ever reach it, whatever, I will write each piece so that it is even the portion of the chapter that you read is potentially its own thing. But man, with the faults though, and getting stuck, I think I've been stuck on the editing process for far too long. But it's made it leagues better than when the story would have been if I were released it 5 years ago or 3 years ago. But luckily, I have people in spaces to talk to and just see their process through their own art. And it's the whole way you do anything is the way you do everything mentality. And I can deconstruct how they are going through the process of creating music and hopefully figure out some key fundamental that I can utilize to kind of break me from whatever disruptive cycle is preventing me to press forward or solve the logical problem that I have on hand without it sounding hokey and unbelievable as well.
I don't know. There are a couple stories that I've written over the years that have really haunted me because, like Jeroen had mentioned in the very beginning of the space, an unfinished fable where it wasn't necessarily that you backed yourself into a wall or a corner and painted yourself there and couldn't really figure out a way out. A lot of times when you write, especially futuristic kinds of fiction and things like that, you still have to make sense with some of the laws of the universe, right? Gravity exists or doesn't exist, or those kinds of things that just there's a hole and you can't really figure it out. Revisiting some of those stories after the fact, like I sat at a Maker Faire once and I told Corey Doctorow, who is a very wonderful writer in general, very cool futurist type person, and I told him this plot line, and he's like, that's totally impossible, right? And I wrote it anyway. And here it is, 20 years later, and you're looking at it going, well, I think now I can actually, finish this story because I didn't have the necessarily tools that I had at my fingertips to be able to do that. I did post one other thing up in the nest that I thought was fascinating, and I did write a post about it in my own kind of X feed, but I just put the raw post, not necessarily my commentary, because I would rather folks saw it as opposed to, learning by proxy. But Delano,
What is it?
it's very fascinating. So this man writes essays, and I highly recommend if you're a writer. He's kind of an interesting dude. I just kind of happened upon him. This was a post that was put in Maria Popova's Marginalia. It's kind of an ongoing project with her. It's at least 25 years. I mean, but it's kind of a running commentary of random stuff that she finds in the ethos and our ecosystem. Ether, I think, is the better word to put it. But along the veins of Boing Boing and some of these other kinds of Seinfeld, like, random happenings, that you just kind of mishmash together. But this was actually a scatter pattern of how all of these folks were influenced by various folks. So you can see how, Voltaire influenced like Isaac Newton, and how all of these theories kind of poked off of one another, and the cross-pollination of ideas. Like, we're sitting here talking about writing and we're talking about the stories, and folks down in the listening audience are thinking, what genre am I going to write in? Am I going to be a romance author? Am I going to write, Sherlock Holmes type mysteries? Am I, fill in the blank, kind of genre? Is it going to be gothic? Like T-Mac is writing, different genres speak to different people, historical fictions, nonfictions, etc. And you kind of have to think and marinate what kind of person you want to write, or what kind of perspective. And then you look at something like this where you have Shakespeare, who influences, somebody like a Walt Whitman, and how it played in certain pieces of their artwork and their creation process. And it's fascinating because the multi-layers that this picture represents, it's not just the person that had to read all of these works and then figure out the little connection dots. It's also the person who had to draw this map. And then there's the person who actually posts it. Each person along the step of the way is making a concerted choice to share and put out into the wild these different kinds of things. And I sat here and pondered this stupid graphic for hours today, because I thought to myself, how many authors have influenced the way that I write and the stories that I want to tell? A lot of times ghostwriting has nothing to do, obviously, with me or my storyline. It's just getting their ideas on paper. The stuff that I like to write, I was born in the wrong time period. I would have been at home with John or, some of the metaphysical type folks, but those are, your formative years and whatever fictions and writing that you were exposed to. But I just thought I'd get a kick out of it, because I would think Alan Watts would definitely be a connection, a spoke off of you, Comfort, or some of the other authors that I could hear poking through in your prose and your writing when we were writing together. So I don't know. I hope that it inspires other people.
Oh yeah, I love seeing that. There's other thing like that, but it just deals with science fiction, and it tries to show like all the different subgenres that come off of science fiction and how they influence themselves within the macro genre of science fiction, and to see just that organic flow is what I'm getting at. That flow of inspiration, which is one of our most precious commodities and modes of exchange. And I totally would have Alan Watts floating in there. But also, I studied a lot of Blake. I studied a lot of Mary Shelley, like just dissecting and deconstructing Frankenstein and seeing how she like was competing against Byron and her husband. And there's so many. And there's also been like the remix philosophers who the contemporary guys who are just on YouTube rhapsodizing and jazzy poetics about, these complex temporary ideas, and the way they deliver. It's been such a profound cornerstone for how I speak today, having listened to them so much. And it's that voice that we try to capture with our prose that often echoes, far past where our pen meets the paper. And whatever page that may turn for folks who identify or justify or whatever they do with the character themselves, it's such a wonderful thing just to feel the kindling of inspiration flicker out there. Uh, and we get to do that. We get to talk about and learn how we do it. It's not very easy. Faulkner says it's like building a hen house in a hurricane. I'm probably paraphrasing, but there are many great genre of storytellers. Many of our musician friends are amazing, incredible storytellers. Uh, One of my favorite things lyrically is to hear how metaphor and rhyme and composition and each technical piece, even though it's intended or not, to see how they work in the locomotion of how those ideas, are transferred and the stickiness of their uptake. What does stick? What mimetic device? If we're talking about story, we can't leave out the mimetic structure of things, but the mimetic device, how powerful is that? And that's the silver bullet, that's the bombardment that we need if we're going to liberate the creative mind across the globe for the next 7 generations to provide us with more agile philosophies and greater narratives that will help us compete, grow with AI in a more sophisticated means versus a Terminator fear, uncertainty, and doubt scenario, as most people would be kind of spoon fed to believe, um, which makes this mission even more emboldened for me. But I couldn't let you slip without talking at least once about liberating the creative mind across the globe for the next 7 generations. Because if we're not ultimately talking about doing that, then what are we doing here, people? This isn't a space for Lambos, unless it's a Lambo in your story, or you bought a Lambo because you sold your story. I don't know. Either way, it's fine. Put your feet up. It's Comfort's couch. We're having a ball. We're telling stories. We're discussing narrative. Sarah's been so gracious to spend her time and her expertise helping us kind of weave through the discussion. We've had some interesting stories. I mean, if anybody has any story they want to share, definitely DM me. Um, and you can come up and read, or I can read it for you, or Sarah can, or anybody could read it for you. Definitely don't want to put Sarah on the spot to read again. She chose a wonderful piece from the Circumfusion novella that you can read complimentary from Amazon Prime's thingy. If not, it's like $2. Daniel wanted it to be easily accessible for as many people as possible. Man, you can just feel the heart in that. Maybe it's an inside joke of feeling the heart, like only us here in web actually feel it. Maybe just us in the corner of our ecosystem can understand the nuances of hearing those different projects represented. But canonizing it and codifying it is definitely part of my mission. And I can't wait to see what the Beasts do with their upcoming little show they got going on. And I can't wait till I have the bandwidth freed up to start animating my own Beasts. Sarah, what you got?
Yeah, there's kind of a discipline that I've been marinating on. One of my mentors mentioned to class, there's a kind of a journal that you can buy one if you wanted to, but you could use just a normal composition notebook. The discipline of writing 1 sentence per day. And they have journals on Amazon where it's a 5-year journal, and you just literally write 1 or 2 sentences a day. And, you kind of condense and distill down what it is that you learn that day, much like a Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. It doesn't have to be a bold, huge, massive tome, War and Peace. Sometimes the most profound things could be a single sentence. At the end of an Aesop's fable is one cautionary sentence, one takeaway nugget. And, to start being a writer, it means that you have to write. There's a difference between a writer and an author, right? Writing for the sake of writing is one thing. Being an author and making a living from it is another thing. Just like if you were creating art and selling your art in a gallery, as opposed to, just making it in your back room and letting the kids, sift through it when you've gone on, But one sentence a day is a discipline that you can start now, and it doesn't take any fanfare. It's just, I always call it a nocturnal, where before you go to bed, you put down in the journal the things that are bugging you, that might keep you up at night. Just put them in a notebook, and don't think about them. Just go to bed. That's where they're going to sit. And upon waking up, maybe write down a sentence of something that you wanted to accomplish today, or something that was on your heart. Usually, when I log in at about 4:30, because I have to take care of farm animals. And so on my computer screen are little sticky notes of people that I'm just thinking about, and I'll ponder over their struggles, send up a prayer, whatever, and marinate on my morning pages. And that ritual has helped me become a better writer, because you notice the minutia and you distill these big, huge, complex whatevers into a bite-sized morsel. And sometimes that can mean anything. I mean, we would not know about the plagues in 1666 or the fires in London, right? Had it not been for Pepys, Pepys, writing his little journal entries. We wouldn't have a lot of the Stoic kind of bits and pieces if Marcus Aurelius hadn't just said, hey, I learned this today. It was one sentence or two sentences, maybe an essay, maybe a letter, but the object is just to get down those thoughts, and then that becomes the seed of maybe a bigger narrative, right? You look at someone like Ernest Hemingway, for instance. He had a very concise way of writing, because that's his time period, and being in the trenches of war, he wrote like a reporter almost. He didn't leave out the fluff and everything else. It's what you edit is actually the story. I think most of the stories that people write are in the eraser bits. They're not on the page. But I just encourage everybody to pick up a pen and write it in real paper, because it sets the neurological pathway in a way that screens cannot. And it'll be a gift that'll keep on giving. Just trust me, from an old lady perspective, right? That having a tiny notebook and just one sentence a day, when you revisit it 5 years from now, it'll have a whole new perspective and a whole new narrative and a whole new story that you can explore. So that's it.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just my commonplace books. That's what they served as. My bug collection kit, if you would. Like every seashell, snail shell, bat house, dog house, barfly story you can imagine. I hungrily and hurriedly scribbled it in, and you could tell because I had these little books with me all over the place. There's sand and coffee and Jameson and tequila and chili dog stains are in these little notebooks, and sometimes the writing is very tight, and sometimes it gets a little did and fast and scribbly, and just to see how I was just desperately trying to grasp at all of that fleeting inspiration for later. You're nailing it right on the head, Sarah, because it is like my reserve, my Green Lantern's battery, if you would. If I ever need or feel the writer's block, as they say, all I need to do is just like turn through those things. And I've added to, not only do I still like walk around with my little notebook writing things down, but I have like a transcription process where I try to type out the little snippets into this wonky organized thing, and hopefully am able to then push those into the proper folders for the proper books, so that those inspirations may already be there, working themselves into the narrative I'm currently working on, because I've already placed them where I think they might go elsewhere. So I'm like, oh yeah, the barber pole in book 10, book 7 is going to be represented here in book 4, and there's going to be a little thing, and no one's going to know until the end, or till they find it again. They're like, hold on, and they have deja vu, and they're kind of confused, and they're asking questions in a good way that delights them further across the narrative. But man, I was talking about story, got me thinking about my own work. I kind of want to read something from the beginning. I've read it once or twice before throughout the 2 years, but this is the latest in the series. I think we'll just do it, do it in order. Maybe read this thing aloud in space. Sarah, is there any way I'm infringing upon my own copyright by performing my work on space before it's published?
Well, it's a recorder space, but
Yeah.
you've already written it. And once it's said, you can also, if you really wanted to, you could almost mint it instantly. You can mint the recording, so it's not going to be a big deal. Once you set things out into the wild for free, amazing blessings come back to you. They really do. So I wouldn't get too caught up with it. Read stories and inspire others, with the gifts and the talents that you've been given. So yeah, I can't wait to hear it. Go ahead.
No, that's a line, Sarah. Read stories and inspire others.
Yeah,
Like,
there it is.
period. Rambo, what you got, bud?
Well, it's almost o'clock here, so I'm stepping down as co-host, but I will be in the listeners to listen to the first chapter of your story. You think you did a fantastic job with the face today, buddy. Awesome.
No, thank y'all for
Thanks for being the co-host.
Yeah, no. Thank you for helping me keep this lot in order. They've been unruly today. Just kidding. Just kidding. It's been amazing, and I look forward for when we are able to gather more storytellers just from around the ecosystem, and have them share and ask them fun questions. Mini inquisition of them, sort of, kind of, really. Just to dig in. I love hearing how writers think, or creatives think in general. This isn't limited to writing. This is a storytelling extravaganza. So whatever your medium is for how you put things together to get us logically from A to Z, make us feel something along the way, uh, that would be amazing for you to share in the light and the joy of your process. To that end, though, I will kind of switch gears from my bloviation over to the very first portion of my book, 60 frames per second, Cyberdelic Odyssey, Book 1, Innocence. Um, let's see if I can find the thing. Here we go. This is from the introduction. It says, if this is where our journey ends, let me tell you a story, more than fiction, a discourse of Zen poetics, as we sequence reflection in a mud puddle. This is part 1, Zeitgeist, chapter 0, Zona Pellucidia. The introductory quote reads, it's from Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives here. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam ad astra. On a clear night atop Mauna Kea, a group of astronomers point their instruments towards the heavens. Aided by the technological scaffolding of research telescopes and communications satellites, they see well beyond the horizon's thin magnetic membrane, protecting our species from the boundlessness of space. The following day, they gather the data and rummage through the numbers in a feverish hunt to capture a glimpse of the cosmos in a breath of the unknown. Tenured astronomer Dr. Catherine Moon, her height exaggerated by the length of her lab coat, stares intently at the material on her workstation. She traces her long finger upon the warm printout, and 2/3 through notices an extreme externality. Either that's massive or it's close, she says, setting down the papers. Then, picking up a nearby tablet, selects a folder which compiles a series of HD images generated by advanced algorithms into a vision of the greater whole. She examines both datasets simultaneously. However, still unsatisfied, reviews the printout, muttering a series of complex equations to herself. Dr. Moon flips to the next page and pauses from theta waves of inspiration. She pulls a dry erase marker from her pocket, pops the top, and squeaks numerical sequences across the board. What you got, Catherine? Dr. Carl Dobie asks, hunching over his desk. Did you find your singularity? He pulls a comb from his pocket protector and drags it through the remnants of his horseshoe hairline. Caught in the narrative equations and the potentials of discovery, she hands him the paper she'd been holding, now with several red pen formulas and blue pen addendums etched in the margins. Carl glances at the board, then back at the paper. What does this mean? He asks. Is the data corrupted? Dr. Nancy Hubble comes over, wiping her Coke bottle thick glasses with a small microfiber cloth, and says, It shouldn't be the instruments. We calibrated and triple checked them beforehand. She examines the clarity of her specs and carefully places them on her face, then tucks her angel thin hair behind her ears and looks over Carl's hunched shoulders at the dry erase board. But to be certain, I'll run the diagnostic sweep immediately. She shuffles off. By now, Dr. Kiki Haiku, a short cosmologist with thick shoulder-length hair and square glasses, has just given up on her exoplanet hunt and the potential of next quarter's funding. A bit defeated, she shuffles over to the growing excitement from Dr. Moon's workstation. Don't let it get you down, Dr. Neil Harriman reassures his colleague. We didn't turn up anything either. Dr. Stephen Singlemass directs his electric wheelchair closer to the flurry of equations. No worries. Once we get back, I have more time to test the math against some of the theories my students have cooked up. And last but not least, Dr. Vega Cooper waddles over. His belly smears the bottom line of theoretical notation as he pokes at potential allowances within the architecture algorithms. These are all over the place, Catherine, he says and points a pudgy finger. They hypothesize it will take all of them to understand this, so they huddle around, thinking, pondering, doubting, and extrapolating the data. Soon the room is silent as the astronomers realize the immensity of their accidental discovery. Results. After several hours of scrutiny, the lab coats come off and the cigarettes come out. As they discuss the object's threat potential, including streaks of cold sweat give way to more rational debates. Eventually, they agree to take their findings to the public and make them known to the proper authorities. Dr. Moon pops open a bottle of sparkling wine and fills a row of plastic flutes. What's the champagne? Stephen rolls next to the desk and selects one. Didn't you see the numbers on this thing? The math don't lie. We're all doomed if this reaches our part of the solar system. True, but you only live once. She attempts to ease his woes. In all sincerity, despite the potential catastrophe this thing could bring, there's at least a breadcrumb of success that it doesn't disrupt the orbits within our solar system or smash through the planet. However, there is something which makes this worthwhile for us all, at least for now. What are you talking about? Neil stubs out an anxious stogie. Here, gather around, she says. First, we have about a decade to prepare. There is time. We have plenty of options. Of course, my favorite being laser ablation. She smiles smugly and presses the bottle into the remaining flutes. I mean, who doesn't want to play with laser technology? What about a kinetic impactor? Kiki asks. Dr. Moon pushes a pair of black rimmed glasses up the bridge of her nose. It could work, but for me, there's something romantic about using lasers. Anyway, thank you all for coming here, for your due diligence, and fighting for our time to use this equipment. But most importantly, she looks at each of them. Thank you for aiding in the discovery of the first near-Earth object originating from another system. She raises her glass to the prominence of celebration. What do you mean? Vega asks and wipes some perspiration with the back of his plump hand. Kiki picks up her notes. You're certain of its origins? She asks, and scans the printout one more time, hoping it's enough to secure the grants to keep her lab space. My friends, I assure you, Dr. Moon extends her hand toward the board. According to my calculations, it's moving so fast, relative to the sun, there is no chance it originated in our system. You can triple check them yourselves. Well, where did it come from? Neil asks. Dr. Moon gulps the rest of her glass. No clue. This stuff is probably celestial driftwood, left over from tidal waves of early stellar formations and supernova explosions. Anyway, I call upon you colleagues and dear friends, let's share one more round in celebration of science in the spirit of discovery, while we can. They pop open another bottle, sending the court towards a dark corner of the room, where an uninvited guest observes them with impunity from a higher authority. From a dark corner. Special Agent Zeph's vivid hazel eyes relay a live feed to the boys and girls at the pickle factory. With his presence veiled, an undercurrent of transmitters quickens the carnal desires of muscle memory. beneath his suit. Unseen, he steadies his breath, focusing on the team's conversation, and observes their camaraderie and elation. What should we call it? Stephen asks. Carl sloshes a bit of bubbly onto the floor. How about Nibiru? A chuckle gallops around the lab. Maybe we can get some of that defense spending money to mine this thing. Nancy attempts to adjust the layered rendering of the object. They all laugh. Carl continues along the tangent of his thought process. Perhaps such an object could have passed through our solar system over 50 million years ago, rippling tidal waves throughout the debris fields, hurtling iridium-rich asteroids. Right place, right time. Don't be a drunk. Vega snorts out some jowl-jiggling laughter. No more for Carl. Someone get him a car. Together we will, divided we won't, Dr. Moon says, then raises her flute. A fever soon catches round the room as they sail on the flow of something profound. The lab fills with a sliding scale of conversation and the blossoms of a sweeping groupthink experiment. They envision an ideal world where financial intelligence is no longer regarded as the highest form of intelligence, curated by settling our differences and collectively coming together as a species for the sake of each other. A unified global community, no longer perpetuated by war, developing the mindset to do whatever is necessary to not end up like the dinosaurs. The death of science. In the bliss of drunken revelry, the astronomers failed to notice the silence rounds spiraling from the stilled shadows. A Pollock-esque blood spray spurts from Carl's carotid artery. He spins around and spatters Dr. Moon. Another bullet catches her in the gut, sending her to the ground. Nancy's head explodes with an exit wound, while her body catches the side of a desk on the way to the tile. A primal dread spreads about the laboratory as the remaining team members duck in different directions of self-preservation. However, their noble efforts are futile at best. Death emerges from the dark corner, fully squeezes several more shots out of his special issue Delta 9, and divulges the contents of Neil's body cavity onto the floor. In foolish desperation, Stephen tries to ram him with his wheelchair, only to find the quivering sensation of the government-issued taser blade within his throat. The current severs the scalings and cauterizes the dangling attachments. Kiki scuttles towards the fire escape. Alas, she reaches the door handle. As she reaches the door handle, 2 bullets exit her chest with symmetrical accuracy. Special Agent Zeph whistles an old-timey tune as he hunts the last target. The Oro system, a nanite colony interwoven throughout his physiology, projects highlighted tracers across the tactical overlay heads-up display Taco HUD. It shimmers over his hazel eyes, tracking the portly astrophysicist's lingering biome, heartbeat, and breath. He stops his tune on the other side of the desk. Vega panics, his heart beating like a swine before the doors of the slaughterhouse. He scurries and slips on a crimson puddle. His pants run wet with the stains of fear as he pleads for mercy and cowers under the assassin's faceless glare. Pathetic. Special Agent Zeph shakes his head. Look, this isn't personal. It's just business. He fires a single shot, then turns to the computer stations. Data breach. Dr. Moon coughs blood into a puddle of champagne fizzle as Special Agent Zeph searches through their printouts. She writhes for a second longer and shoots a middle finger in the thief's direction. Her last sight before succumbing to the call of Osiris is of him inserting a solid-state drive into their lab terminal. While waiting for the data exchange, he piles their bodies, coats, pocket protectors, hopes, and dreams onto a crisp tarp to clean up crew. A light chime cues a pop-up message across the Taco HUD. Special Agent Zeph ejects the portable device, erases all traces of the team's discovery, replacing it with the agency's pre-scripted findings. In the manner of a moment too brief to consider, another discovery is stolen before it unfurls to fruition. He takes the drive and copies the encoded data within the Mind Palace VPN partition, a secret logical division within the Oro system. Next, he drops it into one of the agency's designated deposit boxes and waits at the location provided on his receipt. Once Agent Zero receives the intel, he gives it to the director, who presents it to his boss's boss, who orders an unpaid intern to courier it to the caverns of subterranean lizard people, who offer it to their king, who prostrates himself before the Arcanist Tao, who delivers it to the lords of the noble houses of Co-America, who hands it to one of the faceless businessmen, who procures it for the Council of Immortal Elders, finally delivers it to the concierge of the World Emperor. Of course, he had already gleaned the intel, transmitted to the Crystal Palace somewhere at the center of Antarctica by an array of orbital satellites outfitted with runes and fueled by Philosopher's Stone. He still preferred formalities as a way of confirming the modalities of his abstractions. And so the sprockets of samsara lock into gear through Goldberg machine of our fate begins again. Decentralized autonomous organism. Somewhere along the chain of command, beneath the darkened chambers of private government facilities and corporate lobbies, a large onyx table projects the stolen data from the sheen of its surface. Around the room, redacted shadows and esoteric holograms veil the Dow's predatory visages, conversing amongst the Art's private global information network. Is there an opportunity to harvest material from this thing before we make them pay to deflect it? We can deflect it, right? Owl asks. You fool, Fox interrupts. Did you even read the report? Of course we can deflect it. There may be large deposits of philosopher's stone within this thing, Turtle speculates. With this, we could finally ascend, Lion says. Bear interrupts. Regardless, we have a duty to preserve order and not let the news of the spread amongst the lower classes. Would they even believe it? Serpent asks. Wolf answers. If it comes from the right source, yes. Then let's prepare global statements for respective outlets, Spider solicits. And get someone to make sure those dirt dwellers don't mess this up again. Bat projects several news screens from their console. The information needs to come out at the precise moment. Rat minimizes the data into a projection of the globe with 60 different location pins, each resonating with its own video feed. Also, let's check global countercultural groups and push for them to become more radicalized. Good idea, Beetle concurs, the shadows murmur. In the meantime, Elephant interrupts, maybe we can stress differing degrees of economic-fueled racial tensions to keep the lower classes divided. Their herd mentality is a dangerous thing, especially if allowed to aggregate. Let us not forget Alexandria. They do work well under those conditions, Crocodile chuckles. And you know what they say, pressure makes diamonds. A snobbish laughter resonates amongst the holograms. Whatever it takes to keep them occupied, so long as we maintain the sovereign duty handed down to us throughout the ages. Eagle reminds the room. Shark responds, we have a right to preserve the heritage of our ancient order. Then let us put it to a vote, Owl concludes. And whoever's left in the room, that is the end of the longest chatter I've had to read ever out loud. Sheesh.
I think it was awesome. And reading out loud is actually a cool discipline. My grandfather would force all of us kids to stand up and be a big target when we would recite, I should say, not resuscitate, but recite prose and stories and things. And he was a big proponent of memorizing poetry, and then, you know, kind of standing in front of the whole family and reciting a poem. There's something special about that, and learning proper diction and delivery of message. And, I just think it's a cool discipline. I made all of my kids stand up and be big targets, and all of them are more introverted anyway. Just kind of like, I'm more introverted. I just was trained to be an extrovert, so it works out well. I saw that Jay Lee has entered the room. She has that skill. That's a superpower of hers, being able to just kind of create a song out of nothing and stand up and just kind of read. It's something that I think everybody should practice a little bit, especially in this day of social audio. But thank you for sharing your story, Comfort. It's really cool to watch it kind of unfold. I always think, whenever you say Zeph, think of Spaceman Spiff from Calvin and Hobbes. And it's such a hard thing, because immediately I see this kid, running around with underwear on his head. It's just kind of cool, in a kind of sick sort of way. But Calvin and Hobbes rock.
Yeah, they do. No, this is up. He goes on a mission. He goes on a mission. Make him fight his inner demons and digital domain. It's a good vibe. It's a good ride. It's a lot to take in. That's why it's broken into very small, readable chunks. You would have definitely paused long to enjoy that. But thank you all for listening. Oh my gosh.
I was going to ask you, what made
Yeah.
you choose the genre that you chose? You also like, let's say, comic books or manga, or I think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, things like that, the whole hero's journey and Marvel ecosystem and whatnot. What made you think of this genre as the one that you want to create this 9-book awesome from?
That's an amazing question. I originally wanted to just write a story that paid homage to the island that helped bring me back to life, and I had basically washed in there. We had the saying, "You wash in and you wash out." There's a surf spot called the Washout. Anywho, uh, I watched in there and I was thinking like, what is better than having like tabula rasa? I was like, what if you had ultimate powers of observation and a blank slate to start from? Um, what would that do? How would your experience end? Like, could I write what it's like to be an adult rediscovering innocence? The moon reflected in the mud puddle, a rainbow, a fish splashing around, a mud crab, a bumblebee, a fly farting as it's flying around. Well, don't be doing this thing. Like to have that childlike state of wonder and to kind of capture that for folks to see. And it originally was like me just showing how to light a fire with Doritos or Cheetos or whatever chip you have on hand, or how to start an outboard motor with a piece of rope if, like the battery goes dead. Just like real world things. That's how it started out. Um, and then with that came the want to showcase the solar punk technology, and I really wanted to keep it not science fictiony. But when one of the editors had, pointed out different plot things and et cetera, I had to kind of adapt what I was going against, which was trying to be science fiction into being more cyberpunkian, but very mild in the early onset. Of course, by book, you know, yeah, by book five, you're getting heady as you're getting towards like the Great Cyber Wall of China and all that shit that he's had. The AI, who's the real hero or heroine of the story, is contending with. But the genre kind of came on its own. Many of the writing contests I entered in early on for different works kept asking about genre, and I could never place something correctly to the genre because I didn't have one. And as this evolved to what we have today, the 60 frames per second Cyberdelic Odyssey, it became only fitting that the philosophical contract that I was trying to create be nestled in this magical, realist, romanticized visioning of the world. A lot of my training in college was done with a lot of transcendentalism and romanticism. Like I said, I've studied Blake a lot and a lot of those romantic authors and transcendental ones that came to the New World and how they viewed nature. And that just kept like the tech aspect of it kept butting against it, against this beautiful natural world I was trying to make sure I captured. But in time, as with most symbiotes, it overtook the story on its own, and now I just do what it tells me, kind of.
I usually start with a character um, as a brain worm, and then I think, where does this person live? What is the problem they're trying to solve? How are they kind of going through the ecosystem? It's interesting how stories find you, and I think that's the reason why it's such a powerful thing that each of us tell our stories, and the stories that we are only uniquely qualified to tell, because ultimately the stories that we need to tell are the ones that find us, and it's usually in random and unexpected ways that they do that. A number of the stories that I've written over the years would not have been the stories I chose at all. They were the ones that pushed me out of my comfort zone and forced me to kind of think through the eyes of, you know, folks that I never would have thought of before. And usually that starts as a prompt or something like that from a stranger saying, "Hey, I need you to write, a mystery." And that's where, I wrote a story about Alcatraz and sitting in Alcatraz, on a boat, and you're looking at the whole terrain. And I thought to myself, wow, I've seen this in a video game or whatever. And it's so accurate. And then you just sit down and you think about that story and what it meant to escape from a prison, or, how you kind of put yourself in those situations. And it was not a story I would have ever written. But then after I finished it, I thought, wow, I don't think anybody else could have told it like this, because, it kind of found me. Wasn't necessarily my best story, but it was definitely one that taught me a lot, put it that way.
Love, love, love it. Oh, I can't wait till there's more of us on stage bubbling about the craft and the process there. I can't. Oh, I can't wait.
I think that's one of the fun parts of just, you know, being in a writer's room, having little snippets of stories and then seeing how they evolve. Because it's interesting as authors in general, you have a whole host of people living in your head and you're living
Yeah.
out their stories. And
Yeah.
it's always fascinating to see folks sitting around the table and daring to summon the courage to share some of those characters that are living in their ecosystem in their peanut gallery and hearing that. I mean, the first time T-Mac read her story out loud, you could hear the jitter in her voice because she'd never written, you know, she taught English forever. But it was at that one moment she realized, wow, I'm being entrusted this story that I'm uniquely qualified to tell. And there is a sense of, you know, seriousness and sobriety and, you know, humility about being chosen to tell the story and picking up that pen. But it happens in many ways. I mean, we're not talking about just typing on a screen or writing in a journal. Storytelling is multifaceted and multisensorial. And, you know, you could be telling your stories in song, you know. You mentioned Blake, and I keep thinking, oh, what is his name? I think it was Brown is the last name of the singer. Basically, going through all of the poems that Blake had ever and setting them to music, and you look at that and you think to yourself, wow. This storyteller is using folk music and is creating this ecosystem. Or it's Louis Baby or Nessie or, you know, folks that rap or spit bars and things like that. That storytelling comes out differently, you know, in the way that it's delivered. Choreography, you know, interpretive dance, picking up a paintbrush or using a very specific and unique material, whether it's carving or charcoal or whatever it is. Those are the kinds of things that you're summoning, but you're daring to actually put it to paper or put it out in the wild. And that act of courage is actually the Promethean courtesy. It's giving fire, you know, to other folks to sit around that campfire and enjoy the story. But usually it entails not the easy tale that's been told. It's always the one that's a little bit tough. And I can see that in your character. The detective is pushing you in terms of your own writing because there's little peaks of comfort that come out of there. And those are character traits and little thought bubbles that you have to kind of deal with. You know, you never know when your character's going to call you out and call you to the carpet and expose all of those insecurities that we have as authors. It's the turnaround, you know.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. No, there's definitely a madhouse in there. But luckily, I have a lot of them trapped into the page. You know, their echoes aren't as loud. Um, but when there's like a character, and I'll leave y'all with this just because we're running a little over, but it was such good conversation. There's a character called the Imp hyphen Oster, so it's the imposter, and it's a play on the imposter syndrome, and I have them as this whispering agent that's just always whispering towards the embodied character, and he's also hunting the digital version of himself, and like having to kind of contend with this you know this boogeyman of sorts. It's a very unusual thing to look at the demons and to smile at how beautifully disgusting you've made them. Just and see like barely a hint of yourself in there. You really want to try to hide you so that the other can attach themselves to the character, you know, as much as possible. But they definitely shine a light onto us. It's been a long-standing belief of mine that there's a way to kind of to capture your demons in writing. You know, it's called spelling for a reason, and to put them towards useful end to give them a sense of you know authenticity, I guess, to turn them from the demon back to the daemon, spirit of inspiration. And that's what I leave you with, folks. Let you go forth and share in that currency of exchange, embolden and inspire. You know, the next Renoir, the next Monet, Basquiat, if you would. The next Yamaza, come back in with some Atmos. Crazy beautiful freak. No mud, no lettuce. Hey, be kind to one another. Drink plenty of water. Stay mindful of your posture. Continue to be positive and love your life. Does anybody have any
Yes,
closing
I have some
words or
closing words
anything? You
too.
might, what you
Comfort,
got?
please. Thank you very
Let's
little.
get. Thank
Yes,
you.
please make Delilah the main screen on your Muzzy Vision while I'm at the gym and put up the little banner that
Yep.
says, I'm at the gym.
Okay, I was gonna do Delilah Vision, but we'll do Yamaza's Vision.
Appreciate it. Love it.
Okay, of course. I was already planning on it. Now get out of here. Enjoy your workout. Thirst Trap Thursday coming in hot.
I was just going to say to each and every person that came in today, thank you. Comfort's a pretty cool guy, and supporting his vision and his motivation is very special. And as a co-collaborator at one time with him, I just appreciate your presence. And I hope that the story that is noodling around in your head, that you do give it a name, and that you do put it to words, and that you do share it, and that you do let it loose out into the wilds, because you never know who you're going to influence. Just like that picture up top, we don't know who was drinking coffee with Da Vinci. We don't know what kindness was extended to a person that changed the trajectory of their life. We don't know how a story is going to live in somebody else's mind and heart, and maybe spur them on to nobler and bigger pursuits. So I'm encouraging each and every one of you to tell your story. This is a time in history where the voiceless are actually given a voice. And if you squander this opportunity, you are going to kick yourself for years on end, because it really is a sin that will revisit multiple generations if you don't do the thing that you were called to do, that the universe tells you have to do. Look up top. Look at that indie author who just put a story out there, has been struggling, and it was one act that brought the eyeballs to his project, and it turned out to be one hell of a story too. He's an excellent writer, and his story is very funny and humorous and relatable. I bought the hard copy because I thought, I want the underdog to win. I think each and every one of you do too. There's something special about that hope that the underdog can win, and why not it be you, right? So go on to greatness, and if you need any help, holler. There's all of us that are willing and able and wanting to help. I did notice that Christine Eriksen just walked into the room, and we have been talking about your husband's book and that crazy, amazing, awesome, and so proud of you. And I'm so proud of what you're doing. And it is so much fun to watch from the cheap seats. You excel. I just hope that you have the most prosperity that you could ever possibly imagine, that random, unexpected, awesome just lands on your whole family. It's just been a delight to watch. So welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know what all these green circles on people's names mean, but someone said somewhere else that you guys mentioned Devon's book here, so I was like, I need to hear this, because I don't know if you've noticed, I'm a little bit of a fangirl. I don't know what's happening, but I don't know. Our 5-year plan is in shambles. I don't know what's happening, but I just want to say thank you for taking notice. And it's really hard to trust your time to a unknown. And Devon just appeared, so I don't know who I'm talking to.
You don't know who you're
Someone said they were talking about you, and they're just finishing up their space. Sorry for making this run long. But
No worries.
No worries at all. This is delightful.
I think it would be okay if you stayed. So yeah, it's like I said, someone said somewhere that you guys were talking about him, and it's just, I really appreciate you guys seeing that he put a lot of heart and effort, and I don't know what to say. There were days where
embarrassing me.
I'm embarrassing myself. But yeah, he knew going in, we all knew going in that his book was good, but we didn't know if being good was enough. And that's kind of when shouting my head off like a maniac.
Action is really sort of the primary currency of the 21st century. It's like everybody's looking for attention on the internet. So.
And I don't know if you can see, people react with these little emojis. So there's lots of little. He's not wearing reading glasses, but
yes,
people are being very nice.
Very farsighted.
And also, I think the norms are people don't even talk until I unmute. It's a little bit like a walkie-talkie.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm gonna.
Okay, so we're just rambling at people.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm gonna mute myself.
This is almost like a cult. This is what you're doing in social audio and spaces. Yeah, it's just like having a conference call. It's even using the same technology. And you're absolutely right. We're all measured in units of attention. And the reason why your story came across my own timeline, I have been absolutely smitten with the whole entire line of thought process and the fact that an indie artist is circumnavigating the legacy systems. And this afternoon, when Comfort started a space, I wanted to highlight you and your family, because it's been just such a pure joy to watch and to see, your achievements and the merit of your work rise to the occasion. And yeah, it's been very, very cool to watch. And it's a privilege to watch from the cheap seats you both succeed, because it's a team project. I already know in the background, making all those dots line up. And one of the worst things you can do when you have a business is grow too fast, because you don't know how to handle it. And that's actually when most businesses fail, is when they grow too fast and they can't scale fast enough. And I think the world of you, and I love your story, and I love your book, and I love everything about it. You guys are both doing wonderful, wonderful things, and you're inspiring greatness in strangers, me included. So thank you for coming to the space today too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's that's quite a lot. Yeah, we developed very early on this idea that we were going to have to do it all ourselves, because I realized that such institutional rot had set in the publishing industry that it was really more of an impediment than an assist to any sort of artistic vision which was strongly held. I mean, my rather over-enthusiastic editor shoved some sample chapters at an editor from some sort of acquiring editor from one of the big publishing companies. I won't say which one. At a con, and he takes one look at the cover page and he says, "Cut 30,000 words." And then he reads the first two sentences and he says, "Rewrite it in third person." And right then I said to myself, this guy didn't even ask why I made the decision to write it the way I did. He's got a template in mind. And that's not what I'm about. And I realize now that the past several months that I've spent looking for agents and publishers have been sort of an expensive lesson leading up to this moment. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So
Big facts.
yeah, this was all about sort of, I had this idea in my head of a story I wanted to tell, and if I can't find anybody who's going to help me tell it exactly the way that it is demanding to be told, then I'm going to have to do everything with myself and my family. And I'm super glad there's three of us, because it's enough work for three people.
It's taking everything, yeah. But okay, also I'm realizing this is a space. Theft of Fire. The book is called Theft of Fire. I keep shouting God on Twitter because he always just refers to it as my book, and it's Theft of Fire. I don't have a little goose picture to post in here because it's visual, it's words.
Well, it just feels weird to constantly repeat the title. It's the book. We're talking about a book.
But it's the only way people can hear of it. Okay, I'm gonna mute us now.
No, you can share it into the Bubbletron in the bottom right corner of the screen. Since this is a recorded space, there in the bottom right corner, it'll kind of be there in the comments. So anybody going through listening, they will have heard us, mentioning the book early on, and then that will be there. And if they listen all the way to the end, they will realize that serendipity abounds on the blockchain, as y'all were able to kind of wander in here. I think that might have been Handsome Bastard posted up about purchasing the book, having heard your story and Sarah talking about it. Or was it DGen Nerd? I'm sorry, DGen. It was one of y'all. Yep, DGen. Perfect. Didn't want to give HP credit. I completely understand. But we would love to get y'all back in here and to chat it up, especially chat about the process. I myself am about to self-publish my own work. I just bought my ISBNs from Valker and got that set up, and about to do the copyright. I got the cover. I've got the 9-book scaffolding Odyssey epic outline ready to kind of take me into book 2 And I would really love to kind of understand y'all's own personal process tips and all that, but then maybe even dive into a little bit of the craft and what Devon does to kind of conjure characters forward and all that nerdy stuff, and maybe some of the deeper things for writing. I myself have to contend with the isolation that's required for me to kind of to create. And I always lean on the man who invented Christmas as a prop. It's a wonderful film about Charles Dickens trying to write a Christmas Carol, and how the world kind of imposes itself upon the writer as they are attempting to pull something of significance from the ethos. So would definitely love to get y'all back. Thank y'all for stopping in today. Um, how many books do you have in mind, if you don't mind me asking very quickly?
Okay, well, yeah, first of all, I definitely, you put me on a soapbox about that stuff. I will
Never stop talking.
until you are thoroughly sick of it. I had originally planned for 3 books. It has now become 4, because in working on the second one, I realized that what had to happen between the end of Theft of Fire and the beginning of the last book of the series, just the sheer amount of stuff that had to happen needed to be 2 books. So it was actually just sort of the beginning of December that I went through and I said, okay, I have to start pulling apart my notes and my outlines and my sections of writing into 2 volumes and figure out how I'm going to break that up. And I've just kind of got a handle on that now. So yeah, it's going to be 4 books.
Amazing. Yeah, my journey started with a 30,000 word thing that ended up being just a 30,000 word outline for 3 books. That then, as I approached the end of completing the 3rd draft of the first book, it ended up expanding all the way to 9, as the story kind of got a little bigger than a sleepy southern island and more so of a moral mosaic rather than just being limited to the hero's journey. Hey,
That's the
hey,
applause of giving you applause. Christine and Devon, I was curious, and I think a lot of folks in the audience would be interested too. How do you feel waking up in the morning and having your account double overnight and your readership expand, and then looking on Amazon and saying, "Oh my gosh, I broke through, the top 10." I just want to hear how that all played out, because I don't think your comment on a big thread like that, I don't think you anticipated it skyrocketing, and how so many people have kind of grabbed onto it. So explain that a little bit.
Well, this is despite a few cynical accusations from a few users, this is not something I could ever have planned.
I would have advised against it. I'm head of marketing.
Hold on. And I think I just sort of stumbled into voicing a few things that very, very many people were feeling, and they just kind of couldn't get that out into the world.
Yeah.
And when you have something like this happen to you, obviously in a lot of ways it's a joyous occasion. And when you look on your sales for one day and you've sold hundreds and hundreds of books, that's great. But you kind of, when something like that happens, you kind of have to expect to have every kind of emotional reaction in series and simultaneously. And sometimes when people have come forth with offers of certain types of support and just this sort of outpouring, it's almost a little frightening, because it's like, how am I going to do all of these things? Can I justify the way that everyone is looking at me? And can I continue to deliver on this? And of course, the answer to that is, well, you got to try. If people were afraid to create, there would be nothing good in the world. But sometimes you have to just sort of sit in a dark room for a few hours and play soothing music and, play chess on the internet anonymously with strangers for a while, just to sort of be able to process it.
Yeah, it's obvious. Like, yeah, it's been very interesting. Like I said, we had a whole 5-year plan where it's like, okay, we're gonna try, and we have the money to try this for 5 years.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, Devon's gonna go back to engineering after
Yeah.
a big because and
Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully that won't be the case.
Hopefully,
but
it's starting to look as if there are some chances of making this a full-time gig.
Yeah,
So.
but it's also a little bit tough trying to figure out how to divide the time, because it's like, okay, people are saying, oh, I love your nonfiction writing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but
Yeah.
it's about theft of fire. More about space
Well,
books.
and I definitely would like to continue writing certain types of commentary. One thing I don't want to be is the dunks on communism guy, hunting around the internet for people to insult. Because, I apologize for nothing. Some of the stuff I was commenting on, that was really totalitarian and scary, and it had to be quashed. But I don't want to turn into this attack dog.
Oh, look, someone said someone dumb,
Yeah.
something dumb, summon
Yeah.
Devon. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, please.
I just want to be able to say, things that I think are interesting, things that I think are enlightening, things that I think need saying, and most of all, to be able to tell stories.
Yeah.
And, hopefully people are into that.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not just, oh, we are so resentful and justified of arrogant elitists who have no idea what's going on with middle America. And that's part of what people want to hear, but we can't just tear down the things that are wrong with our society. We have to build.
Yeah.
We have to create, and we have to encourage others to create.
Yeah.
There is a real scarcity of that Promethean ideal in our society right now, and we need to bring it back because people are hungry for it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, okay. So is your name? I just popped in here somehow because I saw a link somewhere. Is your name Comfort? What do I call you?
Yeah, you can call me
Okay,
Comfort.
so I would be interested in coming back and talking a little, because so all the things like the ISBNs and the book forming and like all the sort of nuts and bolts of it, I pretty much did all of that.
Yeah, that's Christine's area.
And then Devon did
Exactly.
the writing things, and
Yeah.
then Acrobatic Hobbit, who I don't know how publicly we're naming her because she's the most in person in our family right now.
Yes.
She's holding down the fort in so many ways, and being the adult and handling logistics and the website, even though I'm the software, anyway, everything. But yeah, so like I said, I popped in here somehow, but yeah, behind me now. So schedule.
Something where you could talk about some of the nuts and bolts stuff.
Yeah, because there was a lot of hard.
Oh yeah, no, get the whole team on there.
Oh yeah.
I think it's ironic that this is the Promethean courtesy. It's the cross-pollination of knowledge and bringing, that spark and that torch back and forth. And I love everything about this synergy and the story today. The fact that you were summoned, that you don't know what the green dots are, that you have.
Okay, yeah, I really have no idea where I am.
IoT. I know, and this is delightful on so many levels because this is the digital overlay. This is a bunch of strangers talking to each other, and most of the Green Dot nation in general, they're overseas. They're all. This is like 1 a.m. for them, and they were closing up shop. But this started as kind of like an NFT project. Oh. So you have a non-fungible token, but the thing is that it's using the blockchain to have the digital notary that it was intended for in the 1970s when it was created, and the idea of having an author be able to profit from their work is basically what each and every person in this room wants. And I think it's such a cool thing that you have this idea, you have this book, you have this dream. Most of the folks here too are like you are software engineers, developers, coders, people with STEM backgrounds. And, this idea that you could still earn a living doing the thing that you love, which is writing stories and, cross-pollinating and inspiring other folks. So you've extended this Promethean courtesy to everyone today. And I hope that you get to know the folks in the room. There are a lot of really fun people. And just like you can... just like you're going to give everybody ideas, we're going to give you ideas.
Well, when we speak about Promethean courtesy, I've never heard it put that way, but the way I construct it is that I like to say that I'm not in competition with good writers, because good writers make people want to read more books, and they make more people want to read books. The hunger of the public for creative product is far more than any one person can fill. I've worked on Theft of Fire for 9 months just to produce the first manuscript, and then, beta reading and editing and rewriting some parts and moving things around. And so then I put it out there, and some people go, take a weekend and go slurp, and when's the seat coming? So, you know, it's I can never fill the demand. And it's like we can never fulfill the demand because there is far more demand for, top tier creativity than there are top tier creative people. So, anytime somebody comes along and says, I want to tell a story, I want to create art, it's like, great, that helps me.
Yeah.
How can I help you?
Well, and two, you guys have talked a little bit about incentives and stuff, and just like, it's really hard, some of the incentives that exist in the industry, just sort of like, one of the big worries we had coming in, it's like the way the Amazon algorithms and everything's like that is designed. It's, we sat down with a friend who's a phenomenally more financially successul than us, like
six figures a month.
It's insane. And what he does is he cranks out like 6 books a year.
Yeah.
To sort of, because that's what
he's got his very, very dedicated audience who will buy over and over from him.
Yeah,
but
he says he knows what he makes.
Yeah,
it's like, yes, people enjoy it,
he's
but that's
following the path of greatest financial incentive.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's good, but it's also just sad that that is what you have to do.
And
for most
what I miss, is the science fiction literature of the late 20th century, where you didn't put out product as fast as you could. You put out the best product you could at a reasonable pace, and you could still prosper like that. And everyone I spoke to in the industry who was speaking to me as an insider was giving me this advice of, you've got to grind out stuff fast.
Yeah.
You've got to build a brand. Have you considered making a shared universe?
We are following none of the advice.
Following none of this advice. It was kindly meant, but I couldn't bear to do that.
Yeah.
I was like, I want the science fiction I grew up with. I want to make that kind of thing updated to the 21st century. I don't want to do this Amazon algorithm grind. So this whole, I've gambled my writing career, such as it is, on this idea that, well, it's been long before that. I've gambled my career on this idea that you can still write like the science fiction writers and fantasy writers of the 20th century and still make it.
Yeah.
I don't have to be super rich, but I want to be able to support my family.
And I want people to read your book. Like, Sarah, like you saying such nice things about Devon books. You have no idea how nice that is. It's like, for so long, sorry, I'm overwhelmed. It's just, we didn't know anyone would ever have the opportunity to discover his book because in the crowds, like, I knew it was good. And
well, when you're doing something creative, it starts as an idea in your head, and axiomatically there's going to be a moment where you're the only one who can see it, and so you've got this thing and no one else can see the value in it because it doesn't exist yet, and they don't know anything about it that would let them decide they want it. So it's like you're doing this thing that nobody asked for. And that wires a lot of self-belief. And the gentleman, and I don't know who this was because I can't read any of the text.
Comfort, maybe.
Who was talking about embarking on a 9-book series, and presumably that's some kind of fantasy, because usually it's fantasy when you're in that long of an epic. You know, the courage that requires is very, very significant. And some days you don't believe in yourself, and you need other people who believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. So, you know, I'm deeply familiar with how hard it is to get started on this sort of thing. And, you know, I just want to say to people who are in that stage now, is that there's no guarantees, but it can work.
Yeah, it's
It
apparently.
can work, and it sure as hell is worth trying, because when you can just make something up out of your own brain and you put it out there in the world and you hope, and then people come back and say they love it, and they pay you for it, and you can pay your bills with that. That is so much better than anything you can ever do in an office job at a
I
corporation.
don't know. You've made some pretty good embedded systems for assembly lines.
You guys can't see the gesture I'm making right now.
Oh, but yeah.
So, guys,
Sorry.
it has been amazing having y'all come in today. I definitely want to get y'all back on here and so we can deep dive into discussion. I don't know where y'all are, what your timelines are, but this starts at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. If you're on the East Coast time, we have 6:30 a.m. spaces where we just talk about everything and nothing. It's not as structured as this, but it's a worthwhile conversation on reaffirming what matters the most, which ought to be each other, and how we ought to proceed to, awaken the creative minds across the globe for the next 7 generations to provide us with the proper narrative structures and therefore the agile philosophies that help us contend with the emergence of artificial general intelligence and the synthetic intelligence that follows from that. But dear friends, colleagues, and family, I bid you adieu tonight. It's been an amazing couch. Remember, good artists steal, great artists inspire. I stole that from Banksy, who took that from Picasso, who stole it from Eliot. I call it for the poets, because as they say in Contact, when they ask her what she sees, her response is, "We should have sent the poets." And let us send the poets to the forefront of the discussion, so that the artist and the creative can have a hand up at the table instead of a hand out by the door. DJin, what you got before we leave off, bud?
Yeah, I just got out of bed because of this whole lost the space. It is 1 a.m. here in the Netherlands. I really wanted to thank Sarah for enabling the Rambler, putting the post on Devon's post on X, which made Christine come in here. So that's really awesome, and I love the space. And I would really love to hear Christine and Devon back on the Comfort Scout space. To love from the Netherlands. I need to go back to bed. I just wanted to say that to you all. And a great space, Comfort.
Yeah, and I do the same thing because I also jumped out of bed when I heard it. So yeah, I'm going back to bed right now. Thanks for joining. Thanks for having this awesome space. Christine and Devin, thank you very much for joining in. It was absolutely amazing to listen to you guys, and I hope you come back. And yeah, thanks for this nice last hour that we really enjoyed. And of course, Comfort, you did an amazing job again. Sarah, you're always amazing. So yeah, thank you. And now I'm jumping in bed. It's 1 o'clock, as DJ said. So time to sleep. Bye.
Well, I hope that all your dreams, all the good ones, catch you, each and every one of you. I just want to say thanks for everybody that showed up today. Your time is the most precious thing that you have. We're measured in units of attention, and the fact that you would spend them with one another here as the iron that sharpens iron means a lot. Christine and Devon, go on to greatness. You have met a whole bunch of new friends that are going to watch you from the cheap seats achieve. And it is just a tremendous privilege to meet you this evening and hear your voices. I can tell you, I'm smiling ear to ear. And for the boys to jump out of bed to listen in means that you've sparked something. You've ignited something in somebody. And it's just really a privilege to have you here. So I hope that everything goes well with you tonight. And if you need any help, just reach out, because in the digital overlay, it's hard to know who to trust and who to ask for help. 9 times out of 10, if you ask in the public discourse, you'll get 1,000 answers, and the public square can suss out the best answer a lot of times. So you go on to greatness. Comfort, thank you for the space. Thank you for the stars that aligned so that we got to talk to such special people today. So we'll talk to you all on next Tuesday, same time, same place.
Yep. TTFN, you crazy, beautiful groove of dirty freaks. Till next time, friends. Be well.
It's schnitzel time. Gotta wake up early, put the chicken on the breast, get the bread it up. We're gonna try our best. It's schnitzel time.